Chapter 440. Master, can we think of other ways to help the couple? Xiao Yan said with a bitter face. This is too. Lin Feng's expression was calm. To what? Xiao Yan mumbled and couldn't say anything. Lin Feng lightly said. Your heart is free from impurities. When you look at things you will also not be tainted by dust. No matter what it is, as long as you yourself maintain a normal heart, then you can treat everything equally. In the end, this thing, your black cloud flag, your nether evil flame, the true fire of the sun, and the soul-gathering pill you take when you cultivate, is just a part of the creation of all things in this world. What's the difference? Lin Feng stood tall, and had an otherworldly demeanor. He stretched out his palm and a leaf from the mysterious sky treasure tree fluttered down. The leaf, which was originally about an acre in circumference, rapidly became smaller, and the reddest of the leaves spiraled and landed on Lin Feng's palm. Everything in this world, from its own point of view, no matter who it is an independent individual, different from the masses. Slowly Lin Feng said, but if we leave the individual's point of view and look at it from the world's point of view, we are just a part of the creation of all things. He looked at Xiao Yan and smiled quietly. And we cultivate so that we can transcend this ordinary existence. Even from the macroscopic point of view of the world of creation, it was still different. You must first recognize this kind of ordinary existence, then you can transcend. As Lin Feng said this, he handed the mysterious sky treasure tree leaf to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan took the leaf and was a little confused. After a while he slowly replied, Disciple was too naive. Thank you for enlightening me, Master. Don't worry about its use. In the end, it's just a medicinal pill. Hearing this, Lin Feng nodded with satisfaction and made a victory sign to himself in his heart. Success again. Xiao Yan pondered for a while and felt that something was wrong. He looked at Lin Feng embarrassedly. However, Master, no matter what, please help me keep it a secret. Don't let others know. They don't have the same insight as Master, so it's inevitable that they will misunderstand me. If news of this spreads to my grandfather and Zhener, they will kill me. Lin Feng smiled and said, It's not for your own use. What are you afraid of? Don't tell me you really want to try it yourself? Xiao Yan's head instantly shook like a drum. How is that possible, Master? You can't joke about this. Since that's the case, then hurry up and go. Lin Feng waved his hand, but when he saw Xiao Yan standing still, he couldn't help but ask curiously, Is there anything else? Xiao Yan looked embarrassed. He stood there for a long time and mumbled, Master, the pill formula. Lin Feng said calmly, There is no pill formula, and I have never refined this medicinal pill before. This task is assigned to you. It's all up to you to figure it out yourself. Xiao Yan suddenly opened his mouth wide. His intuition told him that he had been tricked. Master? Lin Feng nodded indifferently. I'll leave everything to you. I'll wait for the good news. Okay. Xiao Yan nodded helplessly and said weakly, Then Master, please give this new medicine a name. Lin Feng rolled his eyes. Name? He thought for a while, and a smile slipped out of the corner of his mouth. He chuckled and said, Let's call it I Love a Piece of Firewood. Xiao Yan's head was full of question marks. I love a piece of firewood. What does this mean? Lin Feng laughed so hard in his heart that his stomach hurt, but he still looked serious on the surface. He said calmly, There's no need to ask more. Just call it this name. By the way, the dragon race's physique is innately strong. You have to pay attention to this when you refine the medicine. The medicinal effect might as well be stronger. Xiao Yan said goodbye to Lin Feng and returned to Fenchen Cliff with the task of refining I Love a Piece of Firewood. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. He sighed. Forget it. Anyway, it's not for my own use. I'll just take it as a pleasure to help others. No, it's a pleasure to help dragons. There was no pill formula. Xiao Yan had to figure it out by himself. However, he had never come into contact with similar medicines, so he could only explore everything from scratch. However, this was not a problem for him. Originally, this kind of medicine was accidentally invented by Taoists when they were refining pills. Xiao Yan's alchemy attainments were already not shallow. Soon he found out a few tricks, but they were all very superficial. The pills that were refined in the preliminary stage could probably only excite ordinary people. Cultivators with a little bit of qi cultivation could suppress it, not to mention a dragon in the Demon King realm like Jieyu. However, everything was difficult at the beginning. As long as he found the right direction, his progress would be very fast. He just had to figure out how to improve the medicinal effect. No matter how much I convince myself, I still feel that doing this kind of thing is weird. Xiaoyan kept criticizing in his heart. At the same time, he refined another batch of pills. He definitely would not test the medicine himself. He only needed to use his mana to test it, and he would roughly know the medicinal effect. Oh, the medicinal effect is getting stronger. However, with the current materials, I have reached a bottleneck. I need to add new materials to further improve the medicinal effect. Xiaoyan put away the pills. He felt as if he had forgotten something. After thinking for a moment, he slapped his forehead. That's right, it's time to send a new batch of freezing frost due to that fox. He stopped the fire and walked out of the alchemy room to return to Sky Gold Pavilion. Different from the above-board pill refining in the past, this time before Xiaoyan left he first carefully tidied up the pill formula. After confirming that there wasn't even a single trace or medicinal fragrance, only then did he stealthily push open the door. After carefully looking outside and discovering that there wasn't anyone else did he step out. At this moment he was looking in all directions and listening in all directions. He was afraid that his previous actions would be discovered by others. The more I feel that I have been tricked by Master again. Xiaoyan muttered as he arrived outside Fox Yinyan's cave. He explained his purpose of coming, and after getting Fox Yinyan's permission he walked in. Xiaoyan wrapped a few drops of freezing frost dew with his mana and put them down. Then he did not stay any longer. He cupped his fists at Fox Yinyan. I will take my leave. He did not know if it was an illusion, but Xiaoyan felt that Fox Yinyan's beauty today was especially breathtaking. Not good. I have been in that medicinal fragrance for so long. It is affecting me. Xiaoyan immediately reacted. He did not dare to stay any longer, and was about to leave. His mana was used to suppress the true fire, so his willpower was very weak. If he stayed any longer he would make a fool of himself. Unexpectedly at this moment, Fox Yinyan's little nose suddenly moved slightly, and her ears trembled slightly. Her originally cold face suddenly became even colder. It was as if there was a layer of frost on it. She looked at Xiaoyan with a gaze so cold that it made people shiver. Behind her, there were even 6 foxtails flashing. So you are a dirty and dissolute person. Despicable. Fox Yinyan squeezed out a few words from between her teeth. Xiaoyan could clearly see the word despicable in her left eye and the word despicable in her right eye. When put together, it was disdain. Xiaoyan was tongue-tied. At this time he suddenly remembered that even though Hu Yinyan is a cold and elegant person, and never pretends to talk about the matters between men and women, but no matter what she is still a fox. Even if she has never eaten a pig before she can still see a pig run every day. As for the smell of things like, I love a piece of firewood, Fox Yinyan was very familiar. Her fox clan had their own fox fragrance, which had a similar effect. Although Xiaoyan had already cleaned up, as long as there was a little smell, Fox Yinyan would immediately be able to smell it. This time, even if Xiaoyan jumped into the sea, he would not be able to clear his name. He practically ran out of Fox Yinyan's cave. He was filled with grief and indignation. Master, you tricked me this time. After throwing the task of refining medicine to Xiaoyan, Lin Feng threw the matter to the back of his head. He was now in the library, looking at the derived unmovable rule scripture with a bitter smile. Using the incomplete unmovable rule scripture that Shi Tianhao, Zhu Yi, and the others had extorted from Liang Yuan, Lin Feng had successfully derived the complete unmovable rule scripture. But what made him depressed was that just like the Mahavirokana scripture recorded on the Kasaya, although the basic scriptures of the unmovable rule scripture were complete, it lacked a general outline. The general outline was the core of the basic scriptures, but it was also relatively independent of the basic scriptures. With the general outline, one could definitely derive the basic scriptures, but with only the basic scriptures, one could not derive the general outline. The general outline of the Mahavairokkana scripture was the 10 forms of the Mahavairokkana palm, and the general outline of the unmovable Rulai scripture was the immovable Venerable's hidden 10,000 fundamental seals. This seal was the source of all Buddhist techniques. In actual combat power, it was inferior to the Mahavairokkana palm, but it was the foundation of Buddhist techniques and had endless uses. In a sense, it was even more precious than the Mahavairokkana palm. Lin Feng sighed. Forget it, I'll leave it like this for now. There will always be a chance. He looked at the Buddhist relic that Zhu Yi had seized from the Celestial Pool sect and thought, I've already extracted the essence of the unmovable Rulai scripture's concept from it. So there's no point in keeping this relic. It's better to let it return to its roots. Lin Feng rode on Mount Yujing and once again descended into the territory of the Great Zhou dynasty, arriving at the ruins of the Great Thunderclap Monastery. Passing through the void, Lin Feng landed on the mountain range where the ruins of the Great Thunderclap Monastery were. He looked around and could not help smiling. That's right, that Song Qingyuan from the Celestial Pool sect is still locked up on the mountain. Chao Wei must be very anxious, right? Let him be anxious for a while longer. I'll release Song Qingyuan after some time. It should be about time. Chao Wei could sense that Song Qingyuan was not dead, but he was unable to determine his whereabouts. Connecting the dots between the place where Song Qingyuan had disappeared and the fact that Lin Feng had appeared nearby, Chao Wei would most likely suspect that Song Qingyuan had fallen into Lin Feng's hands. However, he had no proof. Chao Wei had also been heavily injured during the battle in the Arctic Sea, and had no choice but to return to the mountain to recuperate. He would not be able to find Lin Feng for the time being. However, Song Qingyuan was a core talent of the Celestial Pool sect's younger generation. Chao Wei would definitely not sit by and do nothing about his disappearance. As Lin Feng thought about it, he arrived at the ruins of the pagoda forest in the mountain behind the Great Thunderclap Monastery. Looking at the desolate and dilapidated pagoda forest, he sighed and waved his sleeves. Another deep crater appeared on the ground. Lin Feng threw the relic in his hand into the deep crater. Then he channeled his transcendence energy again, and the crater disappeared. The rocky ground closed up and returned to its original state. Just as Lin Feng was about to turn and leave, a system notification suddenly rang out in his mind. The host has triggered a random side mission. Return to ultimate bliss. Lin Feng was stunned. He checked the mission description in the system and saw that it said, the host has sent a Buddhist relic back to the ruins of the pagoda forest for the second time. The host has triggered a random side mission. Return to ultimate bliss. Chapter 441. Lin Feng was surprised that he could trigger the system's side mission in such a way. He looked at the mission description carefully and smiled bitterly. This mission is a bit difficult. Mission background. The Great Thunderclap Monastery has been destroyed. The pagoda forest that stored the relics of the deceased monks has been destroyed. Most of the relics are lost. Mission objective. Collect the lost relics and bring them back to the ruins of the Great Thunderclap Monastery for a new burial. Mission time limit. No time limit. Lin Feng looked at the mission time limit and was not happy at all. It would be great if there was no time limit, but according to the system's usual scam, it meant that the mission was extremely difficult since the conditions were so generous. Lin Feng looked at the mission description again. It clearly meant that he had to send all the lost relics back to the Great Thunderclap Monastery for the mission to be considered completed. This was simply a scam. Who knew how many Sariras there were in total? Who knew where these Sariras were, and who they were in the hands of? It would be fine if they were all in someone else's hands. However, if one of the relics was randomly left in some godforsaken place, he would never be able to find it. Although the system had a motto, which was that the harder the mission, the better the reward. However, there was no such thing as the hardest mission. Lin Feng smiled bitterly, his consciousness retreating from the system. A voice transmission crystal in his hand suddenly vibrated. He crushed it and Yan Mingyue's voice sounded. Sect Master Lin, we can basically confirm that the Qiongqi demon race did not return to Tianhuang mainland. Instead, they are hiding in a medium-sized world and waiting for an opportunity to strike. The Cheongchi race not only collected the materials for the 9-glory sky-crashing array, through ancestral master Kuan-Yu and the others in the Divine Land, but they also sent people to collect treasures in Tianhuang mainland. From the current situation, the 9-glory sky-crashing array is about to be completed. Yan Mingyue's voice became more solemn. Time is of the essence. We need to head to that medium-sized world as soon as possible. Lin Feng said silently, I'm in the Great Zhou Dynasty, at the ruins of the Great Thunderclap Monastery. You can meet me there. We'll be there soon. After Yan Mingyue finished speaking, she cut off the voice transmission. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. Did she just say we? Other than the Taishu Temple, there are many other people. Slowly walking out of the ruins of the Tempest Temple, Lin Feng strolled among the mountains. The divine gate above his head opened wide, and a beam of clear light shot up into the sky, breaking through the void. Among the surging purple clouds, the shadow of Yujing Mountain was faintly discernible. Lin Feng formed a spell sign with both hands, the essence, energy, and spirit of his entire body completely merged with the white jade capital mountain above his head, the cyclic purple qi, and the mysterious heaven treasure tree. Time, space, spirit, and matter all four reached a state of perfect balance. An enormous amount of purple mist flowed down along the clear light, and poured into the top of Lin Feng's head. Within the mist, the mysterious heaven precious tree shone with a 7-colored light. Enveloped by the light, the enormous jade Jing mountain shrunk infinitely, and finally, along with the purple mist, fell into the top of Lin Feng's head. Lin Feng's spirit shook violently, and he felt drowsy. This was a sign that his spirit was seriously lacking. For Lin Feng, who was currently in the middle stage of yuanying, this kind of situation was almost impossible. But now it was really happening to him. Lin Feng laughed bitterly. I'm still pushing myself. My transcendence energy is almost frozen to death. Right now, I'm still lacking in the things I have on hand. After dealing with the Cheongchi demons, I'll get more good stuff. I'll definitely go to the system and play it big. Master, what's going on? On Yujing Mountain, Xiaoyan, Shi Tianhao, and the others all realized that something was wrong. Yujing Mountain was still enveloped by the purple qi, but outside the purple qi, it was clearly no longer the spatial turbulence. It was just that they were blocked by the purple qi, so they couldn't find out what was happening outside. Lin Feng composed himself and said lightly, Don't be impatient. Master will be heading to a medium-class world in a while. When the time comes, I'll bring you all to broaden your horizons. But that place is very dangerous, and it's not a place you can go right now. Just stay on the mountain with peace of mind. Xiao Yan and the others answered in unison. Yes, disciple understands. Lin Feng nodded and suddenly laughed. He thought to himself, other people have their fated sons of heaven bringing old grandpas with them, but I'm bringing a group of fated sons of heaven with me. I wonder who's more eye-catching? Lin Feng continued to walk between the mountains. He was neither light nor heavy, and he didn't reveal any transcendence energy or aura at all. He was just like a normal person. In the beginning, he walked with uneven steps. His steps were unsteady, and his movements were awkward. His limbs looked uncoordinated. After walking for a while, his movements gradually became more agile, and he was no longer as stiff. Later on, his steps became more and more relaxed, leisurely and carefree. He strolled between heaven and earth, faintly becoming one with heaven and earth. But he still didn't use any transcendence energy around his body. Because of the suppression of Jade Capital Mountain, in reality, his transcendence energy was still extremely sluggish. The current Lin Feng seemed to have returned to the time when he was in the Qi refinement and foundation establishment stages. But he was one with Jade Capital Mountain, and his understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth became more and more clear. The obscure and stiff transcendence energy was squeezed out bit by bit, like fine steel being repeatedly tempered and hammered, becoming purer and purer. After walking in the mountains for an unknown period of time, Lin Feng suddenly stopped and turned to look at a mountain peak behind him. On the mountain peak, the air suddenly rippled like water. The rippling of the air disappeared in a flash, and the figure of a girl in green appeared on the mountain peak. She looked down at the clear stream, calm and at ease. She had a noble temperament, and her facial features were exquisite and beautiful. She was the successor of Taishu Temple, Yan Mingyue. Yan Mingyue took a step forward, and she was already in front of Lin Feng. She smiled and said, "Sect leader Lin, how have you been?" "I, Mingyue, greet you." Lin Feng nodded. "Fellow Taoist Yan, it's been a long time." The two of them looked at each other calmly, but in fact, they were secretly calculating and guarding against each other. Ever since they met, they had been helping each other, but also guarding against each other. They were both enemies and friends. Yan Mingyue had used Lin Feng's help to trick Pang Jie, and Lin Feng had also received a lot of help from Yan Mingyue, especially a lot of useful secrets and intelligence. Yan Mingyue said, "I haven't congratulated sect leader Lin for obtaining half of the Kunpeng secret treasure. You've gained a lot." Lin Feng shook his head indifferently. "Although I had expected that the Kunpeng demon race in Infinite Mainland might cause trouble, I really didn't expect them to obtain the fate-defying heavenly stone that hasn't appeared for tens of thousands of years." With the fate-defying heavenly stone in hand, they activated the fate-defying soul-returning ritual, and almost revived the ancient Kunpeng. Yan Mingyue smiled faintly and said, "The Kunpeng demonic race obtaining the fate-defying heavenly stone was indeed unexpected. No one could have predicted it. Fortunately, sect leader Lin successfully disrupted the ceremony, and caused the Kunpeng demonic race to fail." Lin Feng looked at Yan Mingyue and said calmly, "As far as I know, the 10 sages of the demon race are in the limelight in Infinite Mainland. Among them, the Enchantress is the most powerful and influential. He already has the power of the demon race's Saint Emperor in the past. The Golden Crow demon race and the Kunpeng demon race are both opponents of the Enchantress. The Golden Crow great sage invaded our divine land, and was suppressed by me. Although he deserved it, it also benefited the Enchantress." Yan Mingyue nodded slowly. "That's right." She glanced at Lin Feng and said with a smile, "So sect leader Lin, you let Kunpeng off this time and left it to the Enchantress to deal with?" Lin Feng revealed a faint smile. "That's just one of the reasons." Yan Mingyue's eyes flickered slightly, and she looked like she was in deep thought. Lin Feng asked, "Other than the two of us, are there any other Taoists from other factions joining the expedition against Cheongqi?" Yan Mingyue smiled. "They should be arriving soon." Before she finished her sentence, she and Lin Feng looked into the distant horizon together. There a crack appeared in the void. From the gap, two old men walked out one after the other. The old man in front was dressed in a white robe with golden edges. He had white hair and a youthful face. His face was like jade, and he had the aura of a king amidst his graceful demeanor. He was the great Qin dynasty's Prince Anliang, Shi Zongyue, whom Lin Feng had met once at the Wilderness Sea Assembly. He was an expert in the second tier of the primordial soul realm. The old man a step behind him had a tranquil and indifferent expression. His robe was embroidered with all the stars in the sky, and they glistened under the sunlight. The star patterns seemed as if they were alive, circulating ceaselessly as they developed the most profound principles of the stars in the universe. He was an old acquaintance. In the past, when Lin Feng sent Xiao Yan to the Celeritas Sword Sect's cloud-traversing peak for an appointment, the Qin dynasty's crown prince Chongyun also went to the cloud-traversing peak. At that time, the person who accompanied them was Dao Master Xingdou, the great Qin dynasty's primordial soul realm offering. Lin Feng greeted the two primordial soul realm experts. "Prince Anliang, long time no see." He looked at Dao Master Xingdou. "Is it Dao Master Xingdou this time?" Shi Zongyue's expression was calm. He nodded and said slowly, "The great Qin dynasty is responsible for the accident at the Wilderness Sea Assembly. This time, we have to thank sect leader Lin for providing us with the clues. It makes us feel a little ashamed." Dao Master Xingdou smiled and said, "Sect leader Lin, how have you been? I will follow Prince Anliang's lead on this trip." Lin Feng smiled. The Qin dynasty coming was within his expectations. After all, the great Qin dynasty and the Cheongqi demon tribe had a feud. After the incident at the Wilderness Sea Assembly, the Qin dynasty was almost disgraced. If they did not settle the score with Cheongqi, it would not be justifiable no matter what. Yan Mingyue also smiled and greeted Shi Zongyue and Dao Master Xingdou. Then she looked to the other side. Lin Feng said lightly, The people of Mount Shu Sword Sect should have arrived by now, right? Back then, Lin Feng used the information of Qiongqi to exchange for Yan Mingyue and Taishu Temple to stop the Mount Shu Sword Sect. Both sides did not go to the Kuimping hidden treasure in the Arctic Ice Sea. If Taishu Temple wanted to persuade the Mount Shu Sword Sect, they naturally could not just rely on empty words. Everyone was jealous of the Nine-Light Sky Cracking Formation, and the Mount Shu Sword Sect would definitely try to interfere. Yan Mingyue chuckled and said, "They are here." The void was suddenly cut open. A sharp and threatening sword essence flashed through the space. It was so sharp that it made people's hearts go cold. Two figures slowly walked out of the space, like two peerless swords being unsheathed, overflowing with killing intent and hostility. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows slightly, because he could clearly feel that one of the people's killing intent was actually aimed at him. Chapter 442. Shushan Sword Sect, the human world of the Tianyuan Great World, one of the three holy lands of the divine land cultivation world. In the past it was on par with Taishu Temple and Big Thunder Temple. Shushan Sword Sect is the #1 sword sect in the world. Its disciples are all sword cultivators. They do not practice spells or forge magic weapons. They fight all over the world with a long sword. Their attacks are sharp and their fights are fierce. They are famous in the world. There is even a widely spread saying in the divine land: Shushan cultivators are one level higher. This means that in actual combat, any Shushan sword cultivator can fight other cultivators by at least one small realm. Different from the Taishu Temple that most of the time lives in seclusion, while Shushan Sword Sect is developing its own sect, it also gathers the Heavenly Sword Sect, Wilderness Sword Sect, Celeritas Sword Sect, Blaze Sword Sect and the other 8 sword sects to form the 9 Heaven Sword Alliance, becoming a huge force that even Taishu Temple has to pay attention to. It's just that there are many conflicts and disputes within the 9 Heaven Sword Alliance. No matter if it is Taishu Temple, or the Great Zhou or the Great Qin, they all do not wish to see a united 9 Heaven Sword Alliance with Shushan Sword Sect as the core. Because of the characteristics of sword cultivators, Shushan cultivators all show off their abilities and their actions are also more overbearing. The unified appearance characteristic of Shushan sword cultivators is that the scabbards of their swords will all be engraved with landscape inscriptions. At this moment the 2 great sword cultivators that appeared in front of Lin Feng did not carry a sword on their back. It's just that their sharp sword essence caused everyone to raise their eyebrows. One of them, his sword essence and killing intent faintly pointed towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng's expression was as calm as before, silently looking at the other party. That is a middle-aged man wearing silk clothes with 3 strands of black beard on his chin. He has a hooked nose and a pair of sharp eyes. His entire body emitted a vicious sword chi that was not concealed in the slightest. Generally speaking, great cultivators who have reached the primordial soul stage will not easily reveal their mana and aura. They are not deliberately hiding it, but naturally harmonizing with the laws of heaven and earth, indistinctly becoming one with nature. Only when they attack will they break away from heaven and earth and form their own style. However, this hook-nosed middle-aged man in embroidered robes was completely different. Just by standing there, he seemed to be incompatible with the fortune of this world. Lin Feng looked at him, as if he was looking at a sharp sword that was moving against the heavens, the tip of the sword pointing straight at the universe. The essence, chi, and spirit of a Shushan sword cultivator were completely exposed without any concealment. Moreover, the higher the cultivation, the more obvious this state was. Lin Feng had also seen great sword cultivators of the primordial divinity realm like Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light and Venerable Swordsman Glorious Sunday. They were like long swords that had been sheathed, unaffected by the passage of time. Only when the sharp swords were unsheathed could one appreciate their peerless elegance. However, the hook-nosed man in front of him didn't seem to need a scabbard at all. He just wanted to sharpen his sword with everything in the world. He seemed extremely arrogant and domineering. Lin Feng understood in his heart, the way of the sword that this person cultivates should be the most domineering and vigorous Shaoshang sword of the Mount Shu Sword Sect's 6 meridian swords. But looking at his cultivation, he is at the first tier of the primordial spirit transformation realm. In that case, He is no longer venerable swordsman of Shaoshang. Based on what Lin Feng knew, the Mount Shu sword sect was led by the sect leader. Below the sect leader were the sword masters and grandmasters who wielded the 6 meridian swords. And these sword masters were all experts at the second tier of the primordial spirit transformation realm. Other than that, there were also some experts at the first tier of the primordial spirit transformation realm, who were extremely proficient in the way of the sword. The strength of Mount Shu was evident from this. The hook-nosed man in front of him was probably the primordial spirit transformation realm Grand Elder under the sword master of the Shaoshang sword branch. As for the other one, Lin Feng looked at the old man beside the hook-nosed man. Beside his arrogant and domineering companion, this old man's presence was not only not weak, but even stronger. The old man's face was simple and unadorned, and his eyes were blank. His entire person was like a stubborn rock. It seemed like nothing could arouse his interest, but at the same time, nothing could make him waver. His sword will was simple and dignified. It seemed to be low-key, but it was even more vigorous. It was even more powerful than the overbearing and fierce Shaoshang sword beside him. Although the hook-nosed man at the first tier of the primordial spirit transformation realm was slightly ahead of the old man, it felt like he was opening a path for him. Seeing this old man, Yan Mingyue straightened her expression and bowed. So Honorable Swordsman Guan Chong has come personally. Junior Yan Mingyue greets you. Dao Master Xing Do also had a solemn expression as he cupped his hands in salute. King Onliang Shizongyue said slowly, Honorable Swordsman Guan Chong, I trust you have been well. Lin Feng smiled slightly. This old man was indeed the leader of the Mount Shu sword sect's Guanchong sword branch, Honorable Swordsman Guanchong. The 6 meridian swords of Mount Shu had different mysteries. Each of them had studied a particular aspect of the way of the sword to the extreme. The Shaoyang sword was neutral and gentle. It was the most difficult to cultivate, but after mastering it, it was perfect and flawless. The benevolent were invincible, and there were no flaws at all. It was recognized as the best of the 6 swords. The Shaoshang sword was the most ferocious and overbearing. It seemed to be indestructible and could cut through everything in the world. The Taiyin sword was the most flexible and changeable. It was unpredictable. The sword was like clouds and mist. It did not have a fixed shape, but it did not affect its powerful lethality. It was different from the Cellerita's sword of flowing clouds of light sword sect. The Cellerita's sword of flowing clouds was a transformation between sword chi and sword light. The sword chi was ever-changing and the sword light was sharp. However, the Taiyin sword of Mount Shu was both unpredictable and powerful at the same time. The Shaoyang sword was the most agile and the fastest. It could cut through the void and turn the horizon into a short distance. It could travel through space to kill the enemy. This sword was one of the few powerful magical powers that could be cultivated by Golden Elixir period cultivators in the Tianyuan Great World. It could travel through space. And when used by Yuanian cultivators or even primordial spirit mighty figures, it had another kind of mysterious power. The Lixiong sword usually hid thousands of sword qi in the user's body. The user had to endure the endless pain of being cut by thousands of knives. Before hurting the enemy, the user would first hurt themselves. But the moment the sword was drawn, the cultivator's sword qi and spiritual power would all burst out. It was the strangest and sharpest of the 6 meridians swords of Mount Shu. Its attack power that was focused on one point could be said to be the number 1 of the 6 meridians of Mount Shu. And the Guanchong sword was the most unremarkable of the 6 meridians swords of Mount Shu. This was because it was a sword technique that displayed the ancient and dignified nature of the sword to the extreme. It looked cumbersome, but it was actually very ingenious. When the cultivator's cultivation level was low, its power was not obvious. But as the cultivator's cultivation level increased, and their understanding of the sword path became more and more profound, the power of this sword path would become more and more powerful. It was almost comparable to the Shaoyang sword. It could even restrain the Shaoshang, Taiyin, Shaozi and Lixiong swords to a certain extent. And the Guanchong swordsman standing in front of Lin Feng right now was without a doubt a great sword cultivator, who had already trained the Guanchong sword to an extremely high level. Lin Feng looked calmly at Guanchong swordsman and said with a faint smile, "The 6 meridian swords of Mount Shu. I've heard a lot about you. Guanchong's swordsman greeted Yan Mingyue, and the others in a somewhat stupefied manner. His gaze finally fell on Lin Feng. He paused for a while but did not speak. His somewhat lifeless eyes looked at Lin Feng, a bit more liveliness in them. But at the same time, the ancient and unsophisticated sword will around him became more and more dignified and sharp. Beside Guanchong's swordsman, the hook-nosed middle-aged man looked askance at Lin Feng. Slowly he asked, "You are the sect leader of Xianmen Tianzong, Lin Feng?" Lin Feng said calmly, "How should I address you, sir?" Yan Mingyue said from the side, "This is Ning Lang, sword master of Duanyue of Mount Shu's Xiaoshang sword branch." Ning Lang looked at Lin Feng and suddenly said, "Leave the talisman to the dimensional world where Qiongqi is. You can leave now." Lin Feng's expression did not change. Looking at Ning Lang, the corners of his mouth suddenly revealing a hint of a smile. "Oh." Ning Lang took a step forward. Suddenly, a vigorous and domineering aura surged towards Lin Feng like a tide. His tone was indifferent, as if he was saying something that couldn't be more normal. "Leave the talisman and get lost immediately. Shushan will not interfere with the Kuanping's treasury. This is your reward. You should know when to advance and when to retreat. Don't be ungrateful." Ning Lang said indifferently, "If not for that, do you think you can get half of the Kuanping's skeleton with your abilities? I really regret it. I didn't expect you to be so useless. You lost half of the ancient Kuanping's skeleton for the demons to bring back to infinite wilderness. If we had gone, we would have killed the Kuanping completely. How could we have let it escape back to the demon realm?" His tone was very casual, but it also included the Qin dynasty represented by Shizongyue and Dao Master Xingdou. Dao Master Chang'e, who was seriously injured in the battle that day, was still recuperating in the Great Qin dynasty's West Hill city. But Shizongyue and Dao Master Xingdou did not say anything. The battle between the Shushan sword sect and Xianmen Tianzong was not a bad thing for the Great Qin dynasty. They were not prepared to get involved. After hearing this, Lin Feng was not angry. Instead, he looked at Yan Mingyue and asked, "What did Taishu Temple say?" Without waiting for Yan Mingyue to answer, Ning Lang said, "Don't talk nonsense. Taishu Temple can protect you once, but it can't protect you a second time. In the Battle of Kunlun Mountain half a year ago, if Taishu Temple had not stopped Sword Master Li Meng from Shushan for you, you would have been dead." Lin Feng looked at him with interest. "Oh, are you sure?" Ning Lang's tone was indifferent. "I know that you are relying on Yujing Mountain. I have to admit that the mountain is indeed powerful, but," he raised his eyelids, and his eyes were like two cold bolts of lightning. He continued to take a step forward, and the domineering sword will around him had completely condensed into a solid substance, cutting the surrounding space. He looked at Lin Feng with disdain. "Although my sword isn't as fast as Xiaozhi's sword, we're only 5 steps apart right now. At such a close distance, if I stab you to death with my sword, do you think you'll have the chance to summon your Jade Capital Mountain to smash me?" Ning Lang said silently, "Or do you have a strange black umbrella? But it is just a turtle shell. It can only defend, not attack. How can you fight against Shushan?" He looked at the barren mountains around him. This is really a good place. Great Laying Temple, a monk temple in the past. How prosperous was its incense? But it still ended up like this. How do you think Xianmen Tianzong compares to Great Laying Temple? Lin Feng's expression was as calm as usual. He did not even look at Ning Lang, but looked at Honorable Swordsman Guanchong. Do his words only represent himself, or the entire Shushan? Honorable Swordsman Guanchong looked at Lin Feng blankly. He did not say a word. Ning Lang took another step forward. The domineering and sharp sword will had completely sealed off Lin Feng. Slowly he said, "I will say it for the last time. Leave the talisman behind, and then scram as far away as you can. The matter of Qiongqi is not something you can participate in. If you don't leave, then don't ever leave." At this time, Lin Feng finally turned his attention to Ning Lang. Looking at the great sword cultivator close at hand, he suddenly smiled. Chapter 443. Lin Feng looked at Ning Lang and suddenly laughed. He then looked at the barren mountains around him. It is indeed a pity that a 10,000-year-old temple was destroyed. Lin Feng smiled faintly. But what is even more regrettable is that your sect lost the Tian swordsman, but in the end, you did not even get a kasaya. You made a wedding dress for others. Lin Feng shook his head lightly. Pity and lamentable. Yin Mingyue, Shi Zongyue and Xing Do Dao Master were speechless. Lin Feng's words were a little harsh. To be fair, if not for the intervention of Shu Mountain Sword Sect and Taishu Temple, the Tempest Monastery would not have been destroyed. Without Taishu Temple's formation-breaking drum, the Allied forces could not have broken the Great Sun Virokana formation of the Tempest Monastery. Without Shu Mountain Sword Sect's Tian swordsmen, they could not have cut down the sorrow iron trees guarding the back mountain of the pagoda forest. Taishu Temple only played a supporting role. Although it played a key role, it could not be said how much effort they put in. But Shu Mountain Sword Sect was different. They led the Nine Heavens Sword Alliance in the war and suffered heavy losses. The Tian Swordmaster, a second-tier primordial spirit cultivator, Tian swordsman, had fallen. In addition, other primordial spirit cultivators had died. It could be said that they had suffered a great loss. But the final result was that the Great Zhou dynasty had obtained the greatest fruit of victory. Not only had they made up for their losses, their strength had improved by leaps and bounds. As for the spoils of war that Shu Mountain Sword Sect obtained, it would be an exaggeration to say that they did not even get a kasaya. But it was certain that the gains and losses were not proportional. Ning Lang used the destruction of the Tempest Monastery to pressure Lin Feng, but in the end, Lin Feng reopened old wounds. He stared at Lin Feng and nodded slowly. Very good. His sharp sword will was no longer suppressed. The domineering and fierce Xiaoshang sword exploded. A dazzling cold light appeared in front of everyone. That chilling sword light had completely materialized, like a peerless divine sword, spanning across the sky. Endless sword chi and sword intent were compressed together, incomparably condensed, incomparably violent. The distance between Ning Lang and Lin Feng was only a few meters. But at this moment, this distance seemed to contain an infinite space. Thousands of feet of cold light flashed in this space, intimidating everything in the world. The boundless space twisted violently, turning the horizon into a very short distance. It seemed incomparably far away, but in fact it was right in front of him. The tip of the 1,000-foot-long cold light was already right in front of Lin Feng. The distance of several meters disappeared in an instant, and Lin Feng could even feel the cold intent of the sword light. Extremely close and extremely far, extremely big and extremely small, they contradicted each other. Yet they appeared at the same time, giving off a strong feeling of distorted power, as if it wanted to break apart the entire world. The spiritual power of the sword light condensed and did not dissipate, while the domineering sword will filled the surroundings. Wherever Lin Feng stood, the continuous mountain range was cut into ravines by the wild and arrogant sword will. The hard mountain rocks cracked and collapsed continuously. Everything happened in an instant. From the instant Ning Lang struck out with his sword, the fate of this world had changed. Facing this sword, Lin Feng also sighed in admiration in his heart. They are both at the first tier of the primordial spirit transformation realm, but he is stronger than Lord Xianming, Yu Xintao, and Lord Tianfeng. The number 1 sword sect, one of the 3 holy lands of the world, Shushan Sword Sect, truly lives up to its name. Although he was filled with admiration in his heart, Lin Feng did not care at all. From the moment he clashed with Ning Lang, he was already prepared. At such a close distance, facing such a powerful sword cultivator, Lin Feng indeed did not have enough time to mobilize Yujing Mountain. He could make it in time with the heaven-shrouding umbrella, but if he only defended and did not attack, how could he respond to Ning Lang's arrogance? If you are arrogant, I will be even more arrogant. If you are ruthless, I will be even more ruthless. If you are not convinced, I will beat you until you are convinced. Roar! Endless cold light suddenly emitted from Lin Feng's body, blocking everyone's line of sight, and surrounding his entire body. A shrill and violent sword hum suddenly rang out, resounding through this part of the world. It was as if a huge slumbering beast had suddenly awakened at this moment. Among the spectators, venerable swordsman Guan Chong, who had been silent all this while, as if nothing could arouse his interest, suddenly straightened his body. His eyes shone brightly as he stared at Lin Feng, who was enveloped by the cold light. However, he only felt a piercing pain in his eyes. Yan Mingyue and the others all widened their eyes, but they could not see anything. There was only endless cold light in front of them, causing even their spiritual senses to feel a pain as if they were being pricked by needles. Everyone felt a heart-palpitating cruelty and brutality. It seemed to be filled with endless thoughts of destruction and slaughter, symbolizing the most terrifying calamity in the world. It was as if the most violent and domineering beast in the world had finally broken through the cage that had imprisoned it. It had descended into the world, and was about to destroy this vast thousand worlds. Ning Lang, who was directly facing Lin Feng, undoubtedly felt it the most intensely. This is sword light. It is even more ferocious and domineering than my Mount Shu's Xiaoshang sword, and even more ruthless and fierce than Li Meng's sword. But how is this possible? The endless clear light suddenly gathered and transformed into a brilliant splendor. It was as if a shooting star had streaked across the sky, disappearing in a flash. However, when this splendor lit up, everything in the world lost its color and sank into endless darkness, like an abyss of destruction. The cold sword light that Ning Lang's Xiaoshang sword had transformed into was directly shattered. The powerful sword chi and sword aura that had been compressed together all exploded, turning into an endless storm of sword chi that was about to wreak havoc in the space. Just this shattered and scattered sword chi was enough to destroy everything in the surroundings. However, before they could wreak havoc, they disintegrated one by one. The rays of sword chi and sword aura continued to shatter and shatter, becoming smaller and weaker until they had no power to speak of. They turned into gusts of wind in the air and disappeared without a trace. And at the end where Lin Feng's resplendent sword light had disappeared, was Ning Lang, who was currently dumbfounded. He gave a fierce roar, his body already beginning to change. As the cold light flashed, he had already shed his human form, turning into a 10-meter long, as wide as a door, heavy and powerful, fierce and domineering. It emitted a powerful might, pushing the power of his Xiaoshang sword to the extreme. If he had not done this, he would have undoubtedly died when facing the sword of Lin Feng's. Duan Yu retreat. The venerated swordsman Guan Chong suddenly moved, his body flashing to block in front of Ning Lang. His index and middle fingers formed a sword, a dot of black light appearing at his fingertips. It slowly moved in the air, as if it was carrying 1,000 caddies of weight, its speed as slow as an old ox's broken cart. However, facing Lin Feng's meteor-like sword light, his slow speed still managed to catch up at the last moment, blocking this sword of Lin Feng's. The heavy black light was like a black hole, bearing the weight of a world. Then it aged, collapsed, and died. Although it was only a little bit, it was so heavy that it seemed to condense a world within it. Venerated swordsman Guan Chong's expression was solemn. With a move of returning to simplicity, the clumsy and ingenious Guan Chong sword exploded with astonishing power, forcibly blocking the incoming resplendent sword light. The black light and the clear light collided fiercely between heaven and earth, instantly filling everyone's vision, turning the entire world into a greenish black. As the light dissipated, venerated swordsman Guan Chong stood in place without moving. Slowly he retracted his fingers. The dark red blood was shocking. Behind him, Ning Lang returned to his human form, a look of horror on his face. Uncle Master. Yan Mingyue, Shi Zongyue, and Xingdou Dao Master all gasped. Just now Lin Feng's sword easily shattered Ning Lang's all-out attack. Then venerated swordsman Guan Chong, one of the 6 lineage's sword masters of Shushan, personally attacked, but was also defeated by one move. It was true that venerated swordsman Guan Chong had not used his full strength, but Lin Feng had only used one sword. Venerated swordsman Guan Chong's originally dull eyes were now cold. He looked down at his feet and said in a deep voice, "Good swordsmanship." Ning Lang's sword was condensed with sword chi, and just the sword essence was able to cut the mountain rocks. But in Lin Feng's sword, the power of the sword light was also condensed into a bundle, without any leakage. But after one sword, the continuous mountain ridges under venerated swordsman Guan Chong and Ning Lang's feet suddenly turned into powder. If the mountain rocks were alive, then their lives would all be killed by the sword essence of Lin Feng's sword just now. Everything in the world, whether it was alive or not, would tremble in the face of this sword. Everyone looked at Lin Feng with a solemn expression, but saw that the cold light had disappeared without a trace. Only Lin Feng stood silently in the void. His expression was still calm, as if nothing had happened. But in the eyes of everyone, he made everyone feel a chill in their hearts. The messy mountain range beneath their feet told everyone that everything that happened just now was not an illusion. Ninglang's face was green and white. No matter how reluctant he was, he had to admit that he was only one step away from death. Shi Zhongyue and Dao Master Xingdou looked at each other. The two primordial spirit experts were shocked and uncertain. Dao Master Xingdou was especially shocked. He was also at the first level of the primordial spirit realm. Although the Star River way he cultivated was mysterious, in terms of actual combat, he was afraid that it was not as sharp as Ninglang's Xiaoshang sword. Ninglang almost died in the face of Lin Feng's sword. If it was him, he was afraid that his primordial spirit incarnation would have been directly torn apart by that bright sword light. Back on the Xingyin Peak, I tried to stop him. Fortunately, he did not use his sword at that time otherwise. Dao Master Xingdou could not help but take a deep breath when he thought of this. Shi Zhongyue also frowned. He was confident that he could withstand that sword just now like Sword Master Guanchong, and would not be killed. But with his cultivation at the second level of the primordial spirit realm, he could vaguely feel that Lin Feng did not use all his strength in that sword just now. Not only did he not use all his strength, but he even deliberately suppressed the power of the sword principle. If he used all his strength, Shi Zhongyue could not help but frown more and more. Not only Yujing Mountain but also his own cultivation is so strong. Yan Mingyue's eyes fell on Lin Feng. She gently tucked her hair behind her ear. Could it be that he is actually a sword cultivator? Is this his real divine sense of proving the way? The scene fell into a dead silence for a moment. Everyone looked at Lin Feng with a complicated expression. Lin Feng stood quietly in the air, calmly looking at the bewildered crowd in front of him. His mind was actually placed in the mystic heaven's eternal light heavenly grotto above Jade Capital Mountain. Watching that peerlessly vicious sword being forcefully put back into the sword case, he still let out a wild howl of unwillingness. Chapter 444. Like a bloodthirsty beast that had been trapped in a cage for a long time, it could finally break free and drink its fill of fresh blood. The ominous sword in the sheath was extremely excited, even though it had only sharpened a third of its original sharpness. Especially when the prey it was facing was sword cultivators like Sword Venerable Guanchong and Sword Venerable Broken Mountain Ninglang. The ominous sword was like a proud monarch being disobeyed by his subjects, becoming more and more violent. At this moment, after being forcefully pushed back into the sword sheath by Lin Feng, one could imagine how frustrated he was. The giant sword box, which was the size of a small mountain, kept shaking and rumbling like a landslide. The tyrannical sword intent surged in the mysterious heaven-time light paradise. This time, Old Golden Crow, who was suppressed under the sword case, was suffering unspeakably because of the sword intent. Now he suffered an unexpected disaster, and became a punching bag. I can still unleash 2 more sword strikes. Lin Feng silently calculated in his heart. Before meeting up with Yan Mingyue and the others, he had already guessed that the Shushan sword sect might interfere. Therefore he made preparations in advance and merged the Jade Jing Mountain with his spirit. He could then directly extract the ominous sword from the mysterious Heaven-Time Cave, and then use the power of the Jade Jing Mountain, the mysterious Heaven Treasure Tree, and the cyclic purple chi to force the ominous sword back into the sword case, so that it would not really go berserk and lose control. This sword was truly ferocious, and after Lin Feng truly wielded it, he had a deeper understanding of its sword intent. It was a concept that surpassed slaughter, ferocity, and ruthlessness, and it was even deeper and darker. Slaughter was targeted at living individuals, but this ominous sword seemed to view the entire great Tao of heaven and earth, as well as the world of creation, as a living individual, and then wanted to kill and destroy that life. The ancient killing god sect's sword principle was known as the heaven-defying absolute sword, but compared to the sword intent contained in this ominous sword, it was like a child that had not grown up. The heaven-defying nature of the heaven-defying absolute sword lay in the fact that it defied the heavens and was ruthless. In essence, it still maintained reverence towards the heavens and acknowledged the might of the heavenly way. However, it stubbornly resisted and defied the heavenly way like a rebellious child. As for this ominous sword, it was going to kill the heavenly Tao. Under the heavenly Tao, all living beings were nothing in his eyes. They were just things that came along when he was punishing the heavens. Different from the Shushan sword Tao, different from any other killing sword in this world, this peerless, ominous sword was a sword that could destroy the world. Right now, the sword was not yet mature. It could not even be considered as showing off its sharpness. However, once it was completely polished and released all of its brilliance, it would definitely shock the entire heaven primal world. Lin Feng carefully analyzed the sword will and thought, if I want to truly control this sword, I still need a lot of effort. He pondered in his heart while maintaining a calm expression on his face. He calmly looked at Sword Venerable Guanchong, Yin Mingyue, and the others before him. However, Sword Venerable Guanchong was not so calm. At least, at this moment, Sword Venerable Guanchong was no longer as dull as before. His eyes flashed coldly as he stared at Lin Feng. Just like Shi Zongyue, he was able to clearly sense that Lin Feng's sword strike from before hadn't been fully executed. In fact, as a sword cultivator, his feelings were even more profound. He could vaguely sense that although Lin Feng's strike just now was extremely sharp, the sword will in the sword Tao was not complete. However, even this incomplete sword will was not pushed to the extreme by Lin Feng. Instead, he had held back. However, this strike was already stunning enough. Sword Venerable Guanchong's entire life's cultivation was on the sword. In his heart, he imagined the scene of Lin Feng's complete sword will exploding without any restrictions. He actually felt that his usually calm state of mind was constantly in turmoil. Someone secretly probed and wanted to see if Lin Feng only had the strength for one strike. However, at this moment, when he looked at the calm and indifferent Lin Feng, he still could not see through Lin Feng's strength. This caused everyone to be secretly shocked. Only when he has plenty of energy left can he still be able to block our detection so flawlessly. He really did hold back. Lin Feng said calmly, does this Dao friend's words just now represent himself, or the entire Shushan sword sect? Ning Lang's face turned green. How could he not understand the meaning in Lin Feng's words? If he had only spoken on behalf of himself, Lin Feng would have killed him here today. Sword Venerable Guanchong raised his hand and stopped Ning Lang from speaking. The elder looked up at Lin Feng. Slowly he said, the master of the Taoist Xianmen lives up to his reputation. Shushan acknowledges that you have the right to participate in this crusade against Qiongqi. When Lin Feng heard this, he suddenly laughed lightly and shook his head slowly. Since you can take one strike from me, I also acknowledge that you have the right to travel with me. He looked at Ning Lang and smiled calmly. But he does not have the right. Ning Lang was furious. Even Sword Venerable Guanchong was stunned. For a moment he could not speak. They thought that they had already taken a step back, but Lin Feng did not see it that way. After that shocking strike, the initiative had shifted to Lin Feng's hands. Now it was his turn to decide who could go against Qiongqi. Some people would scram back to where they came from. Silently, Lin Feng looked at Ning Lang and said nonchalantly, the Shushan sword sect is the #1 holy land of the sword in the world. I have also heard of it for a long time. But if some people think that they can do whatever they want with the protection of Shushan, then I do not mind making a move. 1,000 years of hard work to form a primordial spirit. It is not easy to obtain, but it is easy to lose. Lin Feng said indifferently, Ning Lang, you are not even qualified for me to draw my sword. But seeing that you are a sword cultivator, I will make an exception. If you can take one strike from me with your own ability and not die, then I will allow you to travel with me. Otherwise, disappear from my sight. All of Ning Lang's sword chi and spiritual power were vibrating, because he remembered that not long ago he had said something similar to Lin Feng. If he did not leave now, then he could forget about leaving forever. Venerable Sword Venerable Guanchong frowned. Lin Feng's indifferent gaze had already shifted to him. Venerable Sword Venerable Guanchong, you have the ability to protect yourself, But you cannot protect him. That strike just now was reserved for you. From the start, it had not been aimed at Ning Lang. That was why he could survive. Venerable Sword Venerable Guanchong was silent. Just as Lin Feng had said, he could deal with Lin Feng if he used all of his skills. But if Lin Feng was bent on killing Ning Lang, he was not confident that he could stop him. The difference in difficulty between killing and protecting was too great. The one who wanted to kill had the absolute advantage. Yan Mingyue suddenly said, Venerable swordsman of Duan Yu's spiritual power and aura are unstable. It is not suitable for him to participate in the battle. You should return to Shushan to recuperate. Shi Zongyue also said slowly, the Qiongqi demon tribe controls the 9 glory sky-shattering formation. They cannot be underestimated. This trip requires the cooperation of all participants. Those who are not united will be more harmful than beneficial. When the two of them expressed their stance, Ning Lang's expression became even uglier. The cold light in Venerable Sword Venerable Guanchong's eyes suddenly dimmed. His entire person suddenly reverted to the indifferent look that he had when he first appeared. Duan Yu, you return to the mountain first. Between you and me, one of us needs to report the specific process and feelings of the battle with the master of Xianmen in detail to the sect. Venerable Sword Venerable Guanchong used his spiritual power to transmit his voice to Ning Lang. Your actions have not been in vain. This Lin Feng is actually a sword cultivator who has attained Dao. This is beyond our expectations. We need to report back in time. Ning Lang took a deep breath. He seemed to be arrogantly provoking Lin Feng with the intention of suppressing Xianmen Tianzong's might. However, it was more to test Lin Feng's foundation. From the looks of it, he had found out Lin Feng's previously unknown secret. He had probably achieved his initial goal. However, Ning Lang had not expected Lin Feng to have such a powerful sword cultivation. He had almost killed him on the spot with a single strike. This time, Ning Lang and the Shushan sword sect had lost all face. This made Ning Lang feel extremely aggrieved. Silently, Venerable Sword Venerable Guanchong said, Today is not the time. There will be a chance to settle the score with this person in the future. The humiliation that Shushan has suffered today will definitely be washed away with this person's blood in the future. Ning Lang gave a muffled grunt. His entire person transformed into a beam of sword light. He tore through the void and flew away without looking back. Silently, Lin Feng watched Ning Lang leave. At this moment, his spirit was connected to Yujing Mountain. Shi Tianhao's voice rang in his ear. Master, you let him off just like that? In the previous battle, Lin Feng did a full live broadcast on Jade Capital Mountain, witnessing the godly might of his sword that could destroy the heavens and the earth. The minds of everyone in the celestial sect of wonders were shaken and filled with fascination. Lin Feng smiled slightly. Just a clown. His attention returned from Yujing Mountain. Looking at Yan Mingyue, Shi Zongyue, Venerable Sword Venerable Guanchong, and Venerable Xingdou, he slowly said, Everyone, let's move. Yan Mingyue gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Sect leader Lin, the Qiongqi demon tribe and the 9 heaven-shattering formation are both of great importance. I have already made an agreement with the elders of the sect. After entering the medium-class world, if we confirm that the Qiongqi demon tribe and the 9 heaven-shattering formation are there, we will immediately set up a spirit designed to receive the elders of the sect. Although she did not say it explicitly, Lin Feng understood what she meant. To suppress the great sage Qiongqi, who was at the 2nd tier of the undying demon soul realm, and the powerful 9 heaven-shattering formation, the current lineup was still not strong enough. They needed a 3rd-tier primordial spirit realm expert to have a higher chance of success. The Shushan sword sect and the Great Qin dynasty had the same idea. Slowly, Yan Mingyue said, If the elders of the sect enter the medium-class world directly now, it will inevitably cause a disturbance in the medium-class world. If Qiongqi is hiding inside, he will immediately sense it and escape immediately. We won't be able to seal the world in time and he will escape. Shi Zongyue also nodded. That's right. We are just making a vanguard. A group of 2nd-tier and 1st-tier primordial spirit realm experts were only responsible for making a vanguard. It was a little shocking to hear this, But the 9 heaven-shattering formation was one of the strongest formations of the demon race. It was worthy of the attention of the human cultivation world. Lin Feng looked at Yan Mingyue calmly. Yan Mingyue looked back at him with a smile, but her gaze was very solemn. It was just that under this serious gaze, how much probing was hidden. Lin Feng smiled inwardly, but on the surface he looked calm. He said indifferently, "Even if we enter the medium-class world, Qiongqi will not be able to discover me." His words were ambiguous. As for whether it was because his cultivation had not reached the 3rd tier of the primordial spirit realm, and would not cause a disturbance in the medium-class world, or because Lin Feng was so powerful that he could hide and suppress the fluctuations of the realm, it was up to Yan Mingyue and the others to determine for themselves. Yan Mingyue's eyes flashed. If this was before Lin Feng and Ning Lang fought, she would not hesitate to think that it was because Lin Feng's cultivation was insufficient. But after seeing Lin Feng defeat venerable swordsman Guan Chong and Ning Lang despite suppressing the power of his sword will, Yan Mingyue was also a little shaken. Lin Feng's silhouette, which was gradually becoming clearer, suddenly became blurry again. The green-clothed girl revealed a smile. Silently she said, "If that's the case, I'll have to trouble sect leader Lin." Lin Feng also smiled. He opened his palm and took out a talisman. The talisman flashed and broke through the void. Immediately, a black hole-like passage appeared in front of everyone. Chapter 445. Lin Feng had obtained the talisman from Kuan-Yue ancestor. It could communicate with and locate the dimensional world in the void and determine its specific location. Everyone followed Lin Feng through the void and entered the dimensional world. As soon as they arrived in this world, everyone frowned. The spiritual qi in this dimensional world was quite scarce, which was completely unfavorable for the survival of cultivators. The divine land of the boundless world had been developed by generations of cultivators over a long period of time. Many resources had gradually become scarce. Therefore, the powerful figures of the major forces were keen to develop new dimensional worlds, and then rely on the original resources in the dimensional world to nourish the divine land. The dimensional world in front of them had always been hidden in the void, and no one had ever set foot in it before. This primitive dimensional world was also one of the targets of Yan Mingyue and the others, in addition to the 9 glory sky-shattering formation. But now it seemed to be a wasteland, not suitable for cultivators to live and cultivate. Lin Feng looked around, and all he could see was a red wasteland, with no end in sight. Without landing, they could feel that the red sand and stones on the ground were worthless. In the wasteland, there was no life or minerals rich in spiritual qi. In short, it was simply a poor place. Tao Master Xingdou frowned and looked at the distant horizon. Slowly he said, "If there is no harvest there, this dimensional world will be a wasteland." Lin Feng and the others nodded and looked in the same direction as Tao Master Xingdou. They could vaguely feel that there seemed to be a relatively strong fluctuation of spiritual qi in that direction. Of course, the Qiongqi clan was also likely to live there. The few of them flew towards that direction together. While flying, Lin Feng lowered his head and paid attention to the red wasteland below. There were no humans nor demons here. Only some strange-looking monsters born from the red sand and stones. Their strength was not strong, at most only at the Qi disciple stage. These monsters should be the natives of this dimensional realm. There should be some strong monsters among them, but according to what ancestor Kuan-Yu had said, the stronger monsters had already been slaughtered by the Qiongqi. Qiongqi was one of the 4 ancient fierce beasts, standing side by side with Tao Tai, Hun Dun, and Tao Wu. It had wings on its back and was covered with hedgehog fur. It looked like a cow or a tiger, and it was extremely fierce and vicious. Even among the demon clan, it was an extremely vicious race. Even if the small monsters in front of him weren't fish that had escaped the net of Qiongqi, they were newborn monsters that had been killed by the ferocious great demon after it had finished wiping them out. At this moment, Zhu Yi was standing in front of a disciple's abode. In front of him was a group of second-generation disciples. "You've been on the mountain for some time now, so you must have some understanding of the environment on Yujing Mountain. The richness of spiritual energy here far surpasses that of other places. There's no need to say more about the barren medium-class world in front of you. And the other places in the divine land that you've lived in are also far from comparable to the mountain. The disciples nodded. The ignorant were fearless. The more they knew, the better they could understand the conditions in front of them. Slowly Zhu said, I'm not telling you this to show off, nor to make you arrogant. I'm telling you a truth. The better the conditions in the outside world, the harder you have to work. The group of second-generation disciples bowed to Zhu in unison. We will follow your instructions. Zhu continued. People should have lofty ambitions in life, but they shouldn't bite off more than they can chew. What you will see next is not something you can really come into contact with now. The main reason I let you watch is to broaden your horizons. Everyone nodded like chickens pecking at rice. They were lucky enough to witness Lin Feng's battle with Swordmaster Guanchong and Swordmaster Ninglang of Broken Mountain. As long as one had the heart to cultivate, and had truly embarked on this path of cultivation, there were few who had not heard of the 3 holy lands of the past. For these young disciples, before they entered the celestial sect of Xianmen, the Mount Shu Sword sect was a legendary behemoth in their eyes, a giant of the immortal Tao that they only dared to look up to. Some people, after entering Xianmen Tianzong, were loyal to the sect, but in the face of legendary holy lands like Taishu Temple and the Mount Shu Sword sect, they would always feel a little short of breath, as if they were dwarfed and felt guilty. Not to mention primordial spirit powerhouses like Sword Master Guanchong and Ninglang. In the eyes of young people, they were simply sword immortals from the heavens, like epic and mythical figures. They could not be blamed. After all, Xianmen Tianzong had just established the sect, and was still in the early stages. The psychological power it gave people was far less than that of the Mount Shu Sword sect, which had been famous for tens of thousands of years. This was also a part of the sect's heritage. The Mount Shu Sword sect did not need to express anything else. Just the words Mount Shu Sword sect was enough to make many young people with dreams bow their heads and worship them. Such power did not come from words, but from Mount Shu's tens of thousands of years of heritage. The strong came forth in large numbers, and they killed one sword at a time. In the battle of the opening ceremony outside Sand Continent City, Lin Feng had consecutively defeated Kong Chong of Mount Shu and Pang Jia of Taishu Temple. It could be said that he had established his power. However, those two were still in the Yuanying stage. When a true primordial spirit powerhouse appeared, the pressure was completely different. Therefore, when they saw Lin Feng facing Sword Master Guanchong and Ninglang, the young disciples of Xianmen Tianzong felt a little guilty. In the end, it was Lin Feng who had shocked the heavens with his sword. He had almost killed Sword Master Ninglang of Broken Peak on the spot, and even defeated Sword Master Guanchong. This scene had a huge impact on the young disciples, especially when Lin Feng used the most famous swordsmanship of the Mount Shu Sword sect to defeat the great sword cultivators of Mount Shu. It made this impact seem even more powerful. Although Lin Feng had only used one sword, it had completely shattered the mountain that was pressing down on everyone's hearts. It was as if the clouds had been dispelled to see the sun, and they were suddenly enlightened. Xianmen Tianzong is not weaker than others. Even a legendary sacred ground like the Mount Shu Sword sect cannot suppress the elegance of our generation. Xianmen Tianzong, Shi Tianhao, Zhu Yi, and the rest had always been full of confidence in Lin Feng. They were pleasantly surprised that Lin Feng's swordsmanship was so strong. Master's strongest mystique is actually swordsmanship. Shi Tianhao blinked. I really want to learn this move from Master. Xiao Yan, who had been training in seclusion, had also left Burning Heaven Cliff, and came to Jade Capital Mountain. Hearing Shi Tianhao's sigh, he thought for a while and said, I'm afraid it's because our current cultivation is not enough. Do you still remember the giant sword in the dark Skytime cave? Although I haven't really come into contact with that huge sword box, I can vaguely feel that terrifying sword intent. This sword is still an incomplete sword embryo. It's very likely that it's a treasure that Master is currently refining. It's his weapon. Zhu Yi, who was beside him, nodded. That's right. It is still a long way from successfully blood bonding with it. Master used the sword case to suppress the Golden Crow Great Sage, so that he could use the Golden Crow Great Sage to sharpen his sword. Yu Hongyan suddenly said. Before this, None of us knew that Master is also proficient in swordsmanship. Perhaps swordsmanship is just one of his thousands of mystiques? Shi Tianhao laughed and said, "That's great. Master has so many powerful skills, so it is not necessary for him to use a sword. When the giant sword is refined, he can give it to me." Xiao Yan and the others laughed and scolded in unison. "In your dreams, you want to have a piece of everything good. You are too shameless." Their conversation and laughter could be blocked with mana, so that the second-generation disciples could not hear them, but it was still very easy for Lin Feng to hear them. Now that his spirit had merged with Jade Capital Mountain, his control of his mana had become extremely immature and awkward, but his perception of all the changes on Jade Capital Mountain had become more acute. Listening to his disciples' conversation, Lin Feng smiled in his heart. Just now, he had used the power of the Xiantian treasure tree to block Xiao Yan and the others' perception of the Xiantian time light utopia. So when Lin Feng, Jade Capital Mountain, the Xiantian treasure tree, and the cyclic purple qi became one and used this power to extract the ominous sword, Xiao Yan and the others did not know. As a result, they, like Sword Venerable Guanchong and the others, mistakenly thought that Lin Feng's shocking sword was completely unleashed by his own cultivation. In their understanding, the giant sword case in the Xiantian time light utopia was still an unfinished magic treasure, and could not play a role. However, it is not easy to be an old grandpa, and it is even more difficult to be an old grandpa who has a group of people with him. Lin Feng smacked his lips. "I have to improve my professional skills as soon as possible to do a good job in this promising job." As he thought about this, Lin Feng, Yan Mingyue, and the others flew over the vast red wasteland. Suddenly, a huge black shadow appeared on the horizon in the distance. Standing on the ground, it seemed extremely out of place. Lin Feng took a closer look and found that it was a strange forest. It was not quite appropriate to call it a forest, because the forest was incomparably large. It was like a primordial jungle that stretched on endlessly. The shade of the trees connected together, blocking out the sky and the sun. It was a spectacular sight. But in reality, under the dense canopy of trees, there were only a dozen or so thick tree trunks standing alone on the red wasteland. Each tree trunk was extremely thick, reaching thousands of feet in height. The trunks were straight and smooth, but above the trunks, there was a huge canopy and branches that extended in all directions, intertwining with the branches and leaves of the other giant trees. It was like a dozen or so giant pillars supporting a vast jungle, or like a giant building with a simple frame and roof. Everyone looked at this scene in shock. Yan Mingyue took a deep breath. That is the cloud forest tree. Whether it is in the divine land or infinite wilderness vast land, it has long been extinct. It can only be seen in ancient records. In the many known medium-class worlds, there has never been a trace of it. Slowly, Shi Zongyue said, "This old man has only seen it in ancient records. It is said that in the primordial era, there was a powerful being who tried to cultivate one of the four great spirit trees, the ginseng fruit tree. As a result, there was a mutation, and finally, this mutated species called the cloud forest tree was born. The fruit's name is the cloud forest immortal fruit. Although it is not as miraculous as the ginseng fruit, it has endless uses. It is a first-class treasure." Lin Feng lowered his head and looked at the barren red plains. He said slowly, "This medium-class world might not have abundant spirit qi, but it should not be so barren. Now it seems that the original spirit qi has been absorbed by these cloud forest trees." The others nodded. Yan Mingyue gently tucked her hair behind her ear. "The Qiong qi that entered here first should have discovered this tree. They might be resting in the forest. We still have to be careful." Lin Feng and the others said, "That is exactly the case." Lin Feng was about to approach the cloud forest trees with the others when the system's notification rang in his ears. He couldn't help but be stunned. The lost relics of the Great Thunderclap Monastery have been discovered near the host. Chapter 446. Hearing the system notification sound telling him that there was a relic of the Great Lane Temple nearby, Lin Feng was first overjoyed. The side mission he received previously was to search for the lost relics, and send them all back to the pagoda forest behind the Great Tempest Monastery for reburial. Although there was no time limit, the difficulty of the mission was quite high, making people feel that it was extremely tricky. Listening to the system notification, it seemed that as long as there were relics around Lin Feng within a certain range, the system would automatically report. This reduced the difficulty of searching for relics by a lot. Although it was still difficult, at least there wouldn't be any regrets of passing by. But after the surprise, Lin Feng couldn't help but be puzzled. In such a desolate and almost barren medium-class world, why would the lost relics of the Great Tempest Monastery appear? Did it accidentally fall into the hands of Qiongqi, or did it belong to someone else? Lin Feng pondered in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. He looked at Yan Mingyue and the others and said, "Keep in touch with each other, let's split up and explore this place." Yan Mingyue looked at the cloud forest tree in front of her and said slowly, "This place can perhaps be called the Cloudy Forest World." Lin Feng and the others nodded indifferently. They didn't mind Yan Mingyue naming this medium-class world. The ownership of this place could still be debated in the future. The most important thing now was undoubtedly to find out if the Qiongqi demon race was hiding here. Lin Feng, Yan Mingyue, Sword Lord Guanchong, Shi Zongyue and Xingdou Dao Lord. The five of them split up and approached the tall cloud forest tree from different directions. Let's not talk about the cloud forest immortal fruit first. The trunk and leaves are all top-notch materials that can be used to refine magic treasures and artifacts. Lin Feng chose to approach a cloud forest tree from below, first flying in front of the trunk. The trunk in front of him was extremely thick. When Lin Feng approached it, it was as if he was facing a city wall. The surface of the trunk was jet black, and under the black color, there was a mysterious brilliance flowing. The bark was not rough, but as smooth as a pitch-black mirror. Lin Feng didn't touch it directly. He raised his head and looked up. The black tree trunk stood tall and straight like a heavenly pillar supporting the sky. Above his head was a vast expanse of green shade. Lin Feng walked all the way up and soon arrived in front of the shade. He saw the dense branches and leaves extending in all directions. The thick branches formed an impenetrable jungle. Deep within the branches and leaves, it was dark and tranquil. Lin Feng did not venture deep. Instead, he landed on a thick branch and silently sensed the changes in the flow of spirit qi inside the cloud forest tree. The spirit qi of these 10-odd cloud forest trees actually linked together through the contact between the branches and leaves. Lin Feng was a little surprised because he could vaguely sense that he had only landed on one cloud forest tree, but he seemed to be surrounded by the auras of over a dozen cloud forest trees. The spirit qi was so abundant that even the sky couldn't describe its vastness, and the sea couldn't describe its vastness. Lin Feng felt like he seemed to be facing the entire cloud forest world, facing a medium-sized world. It was also at this time that Lin Feng's brows suddenly furrowed. Strange, why can't I sense the self-awareness of these cloud forest trees? A medium-sized world did not have void lightning tribulation. Hence, no matter how powerful a species, absorbing and breathing spiritual energy to cultivate, they could only cultivate to the peak of the golden elixir period too. Even if these enormous cloud forest trees absorbed vast amounts of heaven and earth spiritual energy, and stored it in their bodies, without experiencing lightning tribulation, they were unable to form a demonic nascent soul, and achieve the position of demon king. But they would definitely be the strongest demon commanders. In terms of total demonic strength, even demon kings could not compare to them. Even many demon kings might not be their match. Disregarding other things, just in terms of total demonic strength, if these cloud forest trees became demons, it would be sufficient to rival demon race great sages who cultivated an indestructible demon soul. But here came the problem. Lin Feng completely could not sense the self-awareness of these cloud forest trees. He could only sense pure plant instincts. In other words, these cloud forest trees were the same as the Salo iron tree sapling that Lin Feng obtained back then. They could not be considered demons yet. They were just wondrous trees with spiritual beauty. But when Lin Feng just saw the Salo iron tree back then, that was just a sapling. While the cloud forest trees in front of him were already towering ancient trees that had grown for God knows how many years. Lin Feng was vigilant in his heart. Such tremendous spiritual energy. The foundation is also an incomparably thick spiritual seed. Even if it can't compare to ginseng fruit trees and salo iron trees, it won't be too far off. After 10 million years of accumulation, it's impossible for them not to become demons. Right now, there was only one explanation for the situation. That was that someone refined these cloud forest trees and obliterated the tree demon divine soul, causing them to lose their self-awareness once again, becoming pure spiritual plants. And now, the spiritual energy undulations of these cloud forest trees were connected as one. Perhaps it was also the other party's means. This made Lin Feng have no choice but to be careful. The spiritual energy accumulated by more than 10 cloud forest trees was already extraordinary to begin with. Now that they were connected as one, it was as if they had transformed into a world. This made one even more vigilant. When faced with the suppression of a world, even essence soul experts would feel apprehensive. However, Lin Feng had the system to conceal himself. If it wasn't for direct vision, even if he stood on the branches of the cloud forest trees, it would be very difficult for the other party to discover his existence. Being able to reach the essence soul realm meant that they were all outstanding. Yan Mingyue and the others also quickly discovered the problem. Each of them displayed their own means to first conceal their tracks. Then they continued to probe deeper into the depths of the cloud forest trees, searching for traces of the Cheongqi demonic race that was hiding here. Speaking of which, where is the Saraira? Lin Feng wasn't in a hurry to move forward. The system's notification just now rang out again. This time, the notification was more accurate. It told Lin Feng that the Saraira was currently moving in his direction. Lin Feng hid himself and simply didn't move, waiting for the hare to come to him. A moment later, a golden light suddenly flew out from the depths of the giant tree's branches. The golden light didn't fly very fast, but it had a heavy and solemn aura. It was the dharmic power of Buddhism. However, it was different from the peaceful dharmic power. This golden light contained a fierce and vicious aura. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. With his eyesight, he could see that it was a middle-aged man who was flying while riding on a Buddhist light. He was stepping on a pure gold alms bowl. The alms bowl turned into a golden light and lifted him up. This middle-aged man wasn't wearing a monk's robe. Instead, he was wearing a very ordinary gray robe. His expression was solemn, and he had a buzz cut. His hair was not longer than 1 centimeter. Among his sparse black hair, 9 dots could be clearly seen. Although he was dressed like a layman, he was a Buddhist monk through and through. Moreover, he was an eminent Buddhist monk who had reached the Yuanying realm. Only right now, his entire body was filled with a vicious aura, and it even contained killing intent. His expression was bitter, and his eyes flashed with a vicious light. No matter how he looked at it, he looked more like a butcher than an eminent Buddhist monk. Lin Feng looked at this monk and vaguely felt that he was a bit familiar. His mind spun and a figure instantly appeared. In the past, when Lin Feng entered the Black Cloud Underground Palace and wanted to take Zhu Yi as his disciple, he once encountered a monk who escaped from the Great Thunder Monastery after it was destroyed. His Buddhist name was Hui Ku. In order to take revenge on the Buddhist Extermination Coalition army, in order to increase his own strength, Hui Ku refined the 24 Saraira of his sect's elders that he brought out of the monastery into magic items. The dharmic power that this Hui Ku cultivated was the art of Akala of the Great Thunder Monastery. However, it lacked the introduction. After seeing the art of Akala that Xiaoyan cultivated, he had evil thoughts and wanted to steal it. In the end, he was killed by Lin Feng in the Black Cloud Underground Palace. Looking at this monk in front of him, Lin Feng thought of the Hui Ku of the past. Although Hui Ku was only at the foundation establishment stage, and this monk in front of him was at the Yuanying realm, their temperaments were extremely similar. Lin Feng looked at the pure gold alms bowl under his feet, and then felt his attainments in the dharmic power. He instantly had an idea. Direct disciple of the Great Thunder Monastery. This person was also one of the monks of the Great Thunder Monastery in the past. After the monastery was destroyed, he escaped the net. Looking at this person's face and aura, one could tell that his hands were covered in blood. The number of lives that he had killed was probably uncountable. This was also a Buddhist cultivator whose life path was completely changed due to the destruction of the Great Thunder Monastery. The dharmic power that he cultivated in the past had already completely turned into hatred and anger, drowning his soul. When Buddhist disciples cultivate, their willpower is incomparably strong. They can see their hearts clearly and discern their true self. They won't easily be swayed. But once they step onto the wrong path, they tend to be even more stubborn and extreme. Hui Ku was like that in the past, and this monk in front of him was also like that. Although he didn't know how many relics he had, Lin Feng guessed that this darn baldy in front of him would probably refine the relics into Dharma artifacts without hesitation, and use them to fight against enemies. As long as he could increase his strength and take revenge for the Great Thunder Monastery in the past, he was willing to do anything. Even if you have to join forces with the demon race? Lin Feng muttered to himself. This person could freely move between the cloud trees, so he was clearly in cahoots with the demon race that occupied this place. It was very likely that he had been bribed by Qiongqi like Ancestral Master Kuan-Yu to run errands for Qiongqi in the human world's divine land. However, Ancestral Master Kuan-Yu obeyed Qiongqi for benefits, while this person was very likely to do it for revenge. Although your firm belief in taking revenge for your sect is worthy of recognition, your method is terrible. Lin Feng looked at the persons departing back with a cold gaze. Qiongqi used the 9 glory sky-shattering formation to wreak havoc in the divine land, and the damage caused is simply immeasurable. Not only the cultivation world, but even the mortal world will suffer. Just as Lin Feng was about to stop this person, he suddenly felt the cloud forest tree under his feet shake. Lin Feng slightly furrowed his brows. He endured it and did not move. Then he saw 2 huge beasts appear in the dense forest. These 2 beasts had wings on their backs and were covered in the fur of a hedgehog. They looked like a cow and a tiger, but their cries sounded like dogs barking. Qiongqi, it really is Qiongqi. Lin Feng took a deep breath. It was only at this moment that it was completely confirmed that the demon race hiding in the cloudy forest world was the Qiongqi clan that had wreaked havoc in the North Wind Sea, and almost caused the collapse of the ancient desolate sea world. The 2 Qiongqi in front of him were both demon kings, and they also looked in the direction that the monk had left in. One of the Qiongqi said in a deep voice, "I hope that human can lure his uncle master here." On the other side, Qiongqi chuckled and said, "He definitely will. When his uncle master sees his juniors refining their sect's sariras into mystic artifacts like the enemies who destroyed their sect, he will definitely not be able to hold himself back." The first Qiongqi also laughed strangely. "When the human comes, the number will be gathered." Lin Feng listened to their conversation, and his brows furrowed even tighter. "The number is gathered? What number? Why does it sound like the direction of the wind isn't right?" Chapter 447. Lin Feng instinctively felt that something was amiss. He endured it, and did not make a move to capture these 2 Qiongqi beasts. These cloud forest trees have lost their self-consciousness, but the trees are closely connected, and can communicate with each other. It is clearly a formation set up by someone. Lin Feng's eyes flickered, and he gradually had an idea in his heart. Although it has not been activated and I can't tell what kind of formation it is actually faintly compatible with this entire dimensional realm. This formation is not simple. From the conversation of these 2 Demon King realm Qiongqi beasts, the so-called numbers should be referring to the number of people. The Qiongqi beasts wanted to use that stubborn Buddhist cultivator to lure one of his fellow disciples here, who was his junior master in terms of seniority. This Buddhist cultivator was already at the late stage of yuanyiing. Although seniority did not necessarily mean that cultivation was high, since it was a trap and not a capture, then for the time being, it was assumed that the junior master had a higher cultivation. However, to be higher than the late stage of yuanyiing, then it could only be a great monk who had reached the primordial spirit realm and cultivated the Buddhist golden body. Tricking this Buddhist monk over, the number of people was gathered. It could be imagined that the others mentioned by Qiongqi also had the same cultivation as that Buddhist monk, belonging to the same level of group. In other words, they were all at the primordial spirit realm. Then, were these primordial spirit realm powerhouses referring to Qiongqi and the others, or Yan Mingyue and the others who entered the cloud forest world? If it was the latter, then it meant that the infiltration of Lin Feng and the others was already under the other party's control. Lin Feng silently sensed the cloud forest giant trees in front of him and slowly shook his head. At most, they can only sense our existence, but it is impossible to lock onto our location. Although these cloud forest trees are strong, they are after all not a dozen great sage-level beasts of the undying demon soul realm. But no matter what, the development of the current situation was somewhat unexpected. Lin Feng immediately transmitted his voice to Yan Mingyue and the others. Even Sword Venerable Guanchong was not left out. Under such circumstances, they needed to first unite and face the external threat together. The situation has changed beyond your guard. Other than skipping over the matter of sensing that the monk has a Saraira on him, Lin Feng truthfully told the others about what he saw and heard just now. Everyone's feedback was not optimistic. Not only did Lin Feng sense the peculiarity of the cloud forest world, the few primordial spirit realm powerhouses had the same feeling. The great Qin dynasty's Prince Anliang, Shi Zongyue, immediately said, "Since it's confirmed that the demon race concealed here is Qiongqi, then there's no need to say any more. This old man will guide my great Qin's powerhouses to this cloud forest world. No matter how many schemes there are, it's all futile in front of absolute strength." Yan Mingyue and Sword Venerable Guanchong pondered for a while and then said, "It should be so." Lin Feng did not say anything, tacitly agreeing to their decision. Then he felt 4 violent mana vibrations coming from 4 different directions. Yan of Yin Dao, 1 Feng and Ti. She not to you Feng. She is not with. To not Yan. She is no longer a pure conservative of Taishu Temple. Be it Taishu Temple, Shushan Sword Sect, Qin Dynasty or Zhou Dynasty, they all had people waiting at the Divine Land. When Yan Mingyue, Sword Venerable Guanchong, Shi Zongyue and the others sent back the message, they would immediately receive them and build a space tunnel. The top powerhouses of the few forces were also ready to charge into Cloud Forest World. The Qiongqi demon race was powerful. There were many powerhouses in the race. There were 3 great demons at the undying demon soul realm. Qiongqi Great Sage was a powerhouse at the 2nd level of the undying demon soul realm. He was one of the 10 sages of the demon race and had been famous for thousands of years. But if the powerhouses of the few major human forces were to come out and block this cloud forest world, then even with the 9 glory sky-shattering formation in hand, the outcome of annihilation would be unavoidable. The only problem was just how great of a price the human cultivators would have to pay. Therefore, Shushan Sword Sect, Qin Dynasty and the other forces were most wary of each other. After annihilating the Qiongqi demon race, the ownership of the 9 glory sky-shattering formation would definitely cause an intense fight. Of course, there were also the 10-odd cloud forest trees in this dimensional world. Lin Feng was still calculating how to obtain the greatest benefits for Xianmen Tianzong, and himself in such a situation, even thinking of ways to stop Yan Mingyue and the others from opening the void tunnel. But now, the situation had clearly changed beyond his expectations. Lin Feng instinctively felt a bad premonition. Therefore, he took a tacit attitude towards Yan Mingyue and the others' actions. At this time he needed to cut the Gordian knot. The distribution and fight for the spoils of war would always be built on the foundation of victory. If one had the confidence to win, it was fine if internal strife ruined the stage. But if internal strife led to the final failure, that would be a complete joke. But right at this time, the whole world seemed to shake. Lin Feng was rather surprised. That's right, the entire cloud forest world indeed shook a little. He looked carefully and saw that the branches of the cloud forest trees in front suddenly emitted a stretch of white brilliance. Over a dozen cloud forest trees that blotted out the sky, the white light on their bodies connected into one. Then, he saw that the entire world was enveloped in a layer of misty white brilliance. The light screen was thin, but it was boundless, as if it was a cover, surrounding the entire cloud forest world. Yan Mingyue and the others attempted to use their magic power to communicate with the Divine Land's void tunnel, but they all hit a wall in front of this white light. Under the envelopment of the white light, Over a dozen cloud forest trees' branches and leaves all turned into light, turning into light trees that flickered with dazzling brilliance. And these over a dozen light trees' size kept on growing, truly filling heaven and earth in all directions. The entire cloud forest world, a dimensional world, seemed to have completely turned into a world of trees. The red wastelands completely disappeared. Looking over, there were only the branches and leaves of large trees emitting light. The thick tree trunks below the treetops continuously extended downwards, as if they had penetrated deep into the boundless void. The ground had already disappeared, and over a dozen thick tree trunks reached the very bottom. Space distorted, like over a dozen thick light pillars, gathering and coiling together, as if coming from the same root system. The few people's expressions all changed slightly. Shi Zongyue said flatly, "It's impossible for old Qiongqi to have such strength. Even if he borrowed these over a dozen cloud forest trees to lay down an array formation, he can't do it either. This is equivalent to incarnating into this world." The cultivators on the Divine Lands side also discovered the problem at this moment. They attempted to break through, but they were isolated outside. The spatial turbulence changed, and very soon, even the direction of the cloud forest world could not be determined. The Great Zhou Dynasty's capital, Tianjing City. In the Great Hall within the Imperial City, Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu looked at the void tunnel entrance that was gradually disappearing in front of them. Their expressions were gloomy and uncertain. Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou sighed softly. "Including our Great Zhou, there are still Shushan, Taishu Temple and Great Qin, 3 factions that attacked together, but they were all isolated. I can sense that there are experts at the 3rd tier of the primordial spirit realm participating, but they also failed on the verge of success." Slowly, Zhu Hongwu said. "Only by mobilizing the entire dimensional world's power, and using the world's will to suppress, can such an effect be achieved." Liang Pan nodded. "That's right. However, such means are not something that great sage Qiongqi can achieve." Zhu Hongwu said. "Your Majesty is right. Only those with the cultivation of the 3rd tier of the primordial spirit realm, or the undying demon soul realm, and with the assistance of special methods, can have such remarkable means." He clenched his fists as if he was holding the life and death of all living things in his hands. Silently he said, "However, as long as your Majesty is willing, it is not impossible to break through the past. If your Majesty is willing, I am willing to be the vanguard." Slowly, Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou shook his head. "Hongwu, don't be impatient. Now is not the time." Although he said so, this ruler of a country still looked a little disappointed as he sat on the dragon throne. Not only this pair of ruler and minister of the Great Zhou Dynasty, there were also some people from Taishu Temple, Shushan Sword Sect, and Great Qin Dynasty who felt extremely depressed. What they were more concerned about was that the development of the situation had already exceeded their expectations and control. The Cloud Forest world seemed more like a trap now. As for Yan Mingyue, Shi Zongyue, Sword Venerable Guanchong, Dao Venerable Xingdou, and the others, they were all trapped inside. In the Cloud Forest world, Lin Feng's expression was calm as he looked at the Cloud Forest ancient tree that had suddenly changed. He thought to himself, "Other than Qiongqi, there are other great demons here. Moreover, they are great demons that are even stronger than great sage Qiongqi. An unparalleled great demon at the 3rd tier of the undying demon soul realm. One of the 10 sages of the demon race, great sage Qiongqi, who is the leader of a race, actually chose to rely on others with a great killing weapon like the 9 glory sky-shattering formation in his hands?" Lin Feng let out a long breath. Or could it be that there are other demon races that killed their way into the Cloud Forest world and conquered the Qiongqi demon race? At this moment, Yan Mingyue transmitted her voiceover. "The situation has changed unexpectedly. Someone has used the array here to communicate with the will of the entire medium-class world, cutting off my connection with the outside world. With the suppression of the medium-class world's will, even a 3rd-tier primordial spirit realm cultivator can't easily break through. And there must be a great demon at the 3rd tier of the undying demon soul realm here. The situation is dangerous. We need to meet up as soon as possible and tide through the current crisis first. To unify a world's will, even a 3rd tier primordial spirit realm cultivator can't easily break through. And there must be a great demon at the third tier of the undying demon soul realm here. The situation is dangerous. We need to meet up as soon as possible and tide through the current crisis first. Sword Venerable Guanchong, who had been silent all this while, spoke at this moment. The other party won't waste time. Other than supporting the realm seal, they will definitely send powerhouses to kill us. Yen Mingyue said, that's right. The situation is unclear now, but the other party definitely won't just have the 3 great sages of the Qiongqi demon race. There must be other powerhouses. Shi Zongyue snorted. If we unite, we'll be strong. If we separate, we'll be weak. Let's meet up first, and then plan for the next step. Slowly, Lin Feng said. The other party will probably have follow-up measures. When the quantity is gathered. The other few primordial spirit realm powerhouses fell silent, and then nodded in unison. That's right. We'll be careful. After cutting off the connection, Lin Feng flew in the forest of flashing white leaves. Suddenly his heart moved slightly. He stopped and looked to the side. As the light flickered, a figure slowly walked out from the light. Chapter 448. The boundless sea of trees flashing with white light filled the entire cloudy forest world. In the center of the sea of trees, a huge figure was standing silently on a thick branch of an ancient tree. It was an exaggeratedly huge rock. Silently standing there, it was like a mountain, not much smaller than the Kuanpeng in his rock form. Different from the azure rock that the Kuanpeng had transformed into. This rock's feathers were all golden, and there were 3 black feathers on its forehead. Its 2 eyes were also pitch black, and its pupils were flashing with demonic golden light, giving it a majestic aura. Although it was a little smaller, this golden-winged rock exuded an astonishing power that seemed to tear the world apart, even more powerful than the ancient Kuanpeng. Standing there, it was like the center of the world. This golden-winged rock was an unparalleled great demon that had achieved the 3rd realm of the indestructible demon soul. In the vast infinite wasteland, the 10 saints of the demon clan were firmly in the top 3 in terms of strength and influence. He was one of the few demon experts that could challenge the enchantress. He was the leader of the golden-winged rock clan, the Golden Rock Sage. The tree trunk under his feet flashed with white light, which merged with the Golden Rock Sage. It was under the control of the Golden Rock Sage, using the dozen or so cloudy forest trees as a medium, that he temporarily controlled the entire cloudy forest world. At this moment, the Golden Rock Sage had transformed into the will of the cloudy forest world, and could dominate this medium-class world for a short time. It was also the Golden Rock Sage who had blocked Liang Pan and the others from the Divine Land. Using the will of the entire medium-class world to suppress it, even experts of the same level as him could not break in for a certain period of time. Not far to the left of Golden Rock Great Sage stood 2 golden-winged rocks that were smaller in size compared to him, and a bird-type demon that was shrouded in a black aura. These 3 bird-type demons were so huge that their wings were enough to blot out the sky and earth. Even with their wings retracted, they were still shockingly huge. On the branch of the ancient tree opposite them, to the right of the Golden Rock Sage, stood a much smaller exotic beast. It had a pair of wings on its back, and was covered in the fur of a hedgehog. It looked like both a cow and a tiger. It was a Qiongqi. Although it was much smaller in size, this Qiongqi exuded a strong evil aura, and was extremely terrifying. It was the most powerful demon in the world after the Golden Rock Great Sage. This was naturally the Great Sage Qiongqi. His expression was calm as he looked at the Golden Rock Great Sage and said slowly, "Rock Emperor, how much time do we have?" His attitude was not very respectful, but from the way he addressed the Golden Rock Great Sage, it was clear that he had submitted to him. If this scene fell into the eyes of Lin Feng and the others, they would definitely feel that it was unbelievable. Qiongqi was one of the 10 sages of the demon clan, along with Golden Rock Great Sage. Although its strength was not as strong, Qiongqi was one of the 4 great ferocious beasts of the ancient times, and the power of its race could not be underestimated. The current Qiongqi Great Sage was an expert in the 2nd realm of the immortal demon soul, but he chose to submit to Golden Rock Great Sage, which was really shocking. Great Sage Cheongchi was in good spirits and had not been injured. He had not been captured by Golden Rock Great Sage and subdued. Instead, he had voluntarily chosen to surrender, and had given up his pride as an expert. If it were an ordinary Great Sage of the demon race, some would also choose to submit to a stronger expert. For example, among the 3 bird-type demons standing to the left of the Golden Rock Great Sage, the sun-swallowing condor, whose body was shrouded in black gas, was one such example. There were also demons from other races who had submitted to the enchantress. However, although such demons had an indestructible demon soul, they were usually lone wolves. Just like the itinerant essence soul cultivators in the human cultivation world, they chose to become the protectors of a powerful force. For example, the Great Qin dynasty's Dao Master Star Do and Dao Master Gambling, the Great Zhou dynasty's Immortal Riding Cloud, and so on. As for the Great Sage Cheongchi, who was unruly, vicious, and had many people under his command, he dominated a part of the infinite wilderness, and he even had a heaven-defying item like the 9 glory sky collapsing array. But in the end he chose to submit to others. It was simply unique. The Golden Crow Great Sage, who was in a similar situation as him, had always been against the enchantress. Even though he knew that his strength was inferior, he refused to submit. Even when he was trapped in the divine land by the enchantress, and fell into a desperate situation, he did not think of begging for mercy. Compared to the human cultivation world, the world of the demon race was more chaotic. Every demon was ambitious and wanted to trample on the other demon races. The Great Sage Cheongchi also knew that he had the 9 glory sky collapsing array, and that he would get into trouble because of his wealth. But under normal circumstances, his pride as an expert would not allow him to lower his head and submit to others. However, after he finally chose to submit to the Golden Rock Great Sage for unknown reasons, the Golden Rock Great Sage did not hesitate to take over this hot potato. He did not mind the trouble that it might bring. He even used his means to set up an inescapable net in this medium-class world to entertain the experts who came for the 9 glory sky collapsing array. He did not suspect Cheongchi at all, and showed great confidence and magnanimity. Hearing the Great Sage Cheongchi's question, the Golden Rock Great Sage's black eyes flashed with a cold and strange demonic light. Don't worry and go hunt. He did not directly answer the Great Sage Cheongchi, but whether it was the Great Sage Cheongchi or the other 3 bird-type demons, they all smiled coldly. Violent demonic power suddenly burst out, and disappeared in the next moment. At the same time, in the forest of white light formed by branches and leaves, there were many terrifying demonic powers bursting out. Lin Feng, who was still far away from the central area, felt the powerful demonic powers surging unscrupulously and frowned inwardly. They are all great demons who have cultivated to the immortal demon soul realm. However, he did not have the time to be distracted at this moment. His gaze was on the light shadow that suddenly appeared at the side. As the light shadow flashed, a barefooted girl dressed in white with her hair hanging loosely behind her slowly walked out. Her face was delicate and beautiful, and her eyes and smile exuded an intoxicating charm. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. So it's the Great Sage Long Yi. Why, is it your master the enchantress who controls this world's will now? The person who came was the demoness Long Yi who had contact with Lin Feng before. Her expression was not relaxed as she shook her head and said, Master is still in the infinite wilderness vast land. I came to make arrangements for Master, but now it seems that someone has already gotten here one step ahead of me. Whether it's subduing or forming an alliance, Cheongchi has already merged with the other party, and now controls this medium-class world. Sect Master Lin and I are now the other party's prey. Lin Feng stared at her and asked, Do you know who the other party is? Only an expert of the immortal demon soul realm 3rd tier can do such a thing. Long Yi replied silently, If it's not some ancient demon that has hidden from the world, then only the Great Sage Golden Rock and the Dragon King of the Purple Sea can do it. Lin Feng nodded. These 2 demons were extremely famous. Not to mention the infinite wilderness vast land of the demon race. Even in the divine land of the human race, they were also well known. The Great Sage Golden Rock was the leader of the Golden Winged Rock race, an expert of the immortal demon soul realm 3rd tier. Both of them were strong contenders for the position of the demon race's Saint Emperor, like the Enchantress. The Dragon King of the Purple Sea was an expert of the dragon race. He was also a great demon that had cultivated the immortal demon soul realm 3rd tier. The dragon race was different from other demon races. Only those who had cultivated the immortal demon soul could be called Dragon King. They were not like other demon races who could be called kings after forming a demon soul. Correspondingly, the dragon race did not use the title Great Sage. Compared to the Enchantress and the Great Sage Golden Rock, the Dragon King of the Purple Sea was much more low-key. But just because he was low-key didn't mean that others would look down on him. This demon, along with the Heavenly Enchantress and the Golden Rock, had always been considered the top 3 of the 10 sages of the demon race. Long Yi continued, the Dragon King of the Purple Sea has always been low-key. The most likely is still the Great Sage Golden Rock. She said softly. This demon's power has been expanding very quickly in recent years. He can almost be called the king of the bird race. Other than the phoenix, the 3-legged golden crow and a few other bird race demons, almost all the bird race experts and races in the infinite wilderness vast land have been unified by him. Lin Feng said indifferently. Not just birds, now even beasts of the land are counted. Long Yi smiled. Yes, but I don't know if Qiongqi was captured by him, or if the entire Qiongqi race simply surrendered to him. If it's the former, then it's fine. The 9-glory sky-shattering formation diagram might not have already fallen into his hands. But if it's the latter, then the situation is very troublesome. Lin Feng looked at Long Yi and suddenly asked, among the demons that came in with you, how many great sage-level experts were there? Including me, 3. Long Ye's gaze flashed slightly and she looked towards Lin Feng. Sect leader Lin's words seemed to have another meaning. Long Yi first straightforwardly answered Lin Feng's question. Then she asked in return, how many primordial spirit cultivators of the human race that entered this dimensional world with sect leader Lin? Lin Feng said indifferently, apart from me, there are 4 more. Long Yi murmured to herself, that's good, there aren't enough. Lin Feng's pupils contracted slightly. Just as he was about to ask something, his heart suddenly moved slightly and he rapidly retreated. A dark red bloody light suddenly shot out from beneath his feet, a cold and ruthless aura of power spreading in all directions. It practically brushed past Lin Feng, shattering many branches of the forest of white light. These ancient tree branches that flickered with white light were now completely one with this dimensional world. Attacking them was equivalent to attacking this world, and the defensive power of the branches was also extremely strong. It was difficult to destroy easily. But now it was shattered by the bloody light. Lin Feng looked at those shattered white light, continuously twisting, the cracks filled with terrifying spatial turbulence. That bloody light just now did not simply shatter the branches of the ancient tree, but it was equivalent to destroying a part of the void. Lin Feng raised his eyes and looked over. The first thing that entered his eyes was a pair of dark red, abnormally terrifying cold eyes, like 2 abysses filled with blood. The owner of those blood-red eyes was impressively an incomparably huge black wolf, like a mountain range. The huge wolf walked out from the depths of the forest of white light. With each step it took, its body became a bit smaller, until its front paws left the ground and it stood up like a human. His entire person also gradually transformed into a human form, turning into a tall man wearing a wolfskin cloak, revealing a sturdy chest. Terrifying demonic power fluctuations and majestic chi and blood spread out, making people not dare to look directly at him. It was impressively a great sage of the demon race that had already cultivated to the 2nd realm of the indestructible demon soul. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent, turning his head to look at Long Yi, who looked as if nothing had happened. Looks like the conversation is going to end here. The white-clothed girl smiled at Lin Feng and spread her hands, saying, don't look at me, sect leader Lin. I don't have the final say in entering this time. She pointed at the tall man beside her and said with a smile, this is my martial uncle, Heavenly Wolf Great Sage. Chapter 449. In human form, the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage was a tall man over 2 meters tall, wearing a black wolf skin cloak. His jet black hair draped over his back, his face was rough, and his eyes were blood red, like two deep pools filled with blood, flickering with a cold and cruel light. He looked coldly at Lin Feng, saying, This is the Lin Feng you mentioned before? Long Yi smiled. Yes, martial uncle. Was the Golden Crow Great Sage suppressed by this person? At this time, an old woman slowly walked out from behind the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, silently looking at Lin Feng. Long Yi smiled. Yes, aunt, that old Golden Crow was defeated by him. Lin Feng looked at the old woman. Her figure was stooped, she wore ochre clothes, her expression was calm, and her facial features looked ordinary. Sensing the fluctuations of her demonic power, he discovered that she was also a great demon that had cultivated an indestructible demonic soul, and had taken human form. Her cultivation was not as high as the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, and should be at the first level of the indestructible demonic soul realm. Her killing intent was not heavy, and she seemed to be a demon of plants like Long Yi. But looking at this old woman, Lin Feng felt that there was something wrong with her. Because she was in the sea of white trees, this old woman seemed to be even more relaxed than the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage and Long Yi. In reality, after the cloud forest trees and the dimensional realm merged and turned into the sea of white trees, the people inside, whether it was humans like Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue, or demons like Long Yi and the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, would all be restrained a lot. On one hand, they had to resist the suppression of the sea of white trees. On the other hand, they couldn't fight too fiercely. Otherwise, it would be very easy for the Golden Rock Great Sage, who controlled the sea of trees, to lock onto their specific position. Grasping the severity of this was a rather challenging matter, and would imperceptibly involve a lot of the energy of Lin Feng and the others. But according to Lin Feng's current observation, the old woman next to Long Yi seemed quite relaxed in the sea of trees. She was because she had become a demon of plants, while Long Yi was also the root of the jade tree. The two were both at the first level of the indestructible demonic soul realm, but Long Yi was far less relaxed. The Heavenly Wolf Great Sage stared at Lin Feng and snorted. If Senior Sister hadn't injured that old Golden Crow first, he probably wouldn't have the ability to suppress it. The Heavenly Wolf Great Sage said, Celestial Wolf, save some strength, the Golden Rock's subordinates will arrive soon. I'm very interested in that jade capital mountain of his. Little Yi accidentally lost it in the past, so I'll help you retrieve it today. Celestial Wolf Great Sage grinned, a cold glint flashing across his snow-white teeth. The Golden Rock needs someone alive to make up the numbers. I'll kill this guy here first to further ensure that the Golden Rock doesn't have enough people. Hearing this, Lin Feng was not annoyed, instead he revealed an interested expression. Oh? It seems like you know a lot about the Golden Rock Sage. Long Yi's soliloquy had revealed some information. Now, after listening to Celestial Wolf Sage's words, it was obvious that they were aware of some of Golden Rock Sage's plans. Heavenly Wolf Great Saint smiled cruelly, and suddenly, his two blood-red pupils shone with layers of light and shadow. It was as if in a boundless sea of blood, white bones were piled up into a mountain, and a giant black wolf was howling endlessly at the top of the mountain. Violent killing intent, and the smell of blood emanated from his body. He was incomparably violent and bloodthirsty. Lin Feng had never seen such a ferocious and brutal demon before. Honorable Swordsman Guan Chong was a sword cultivator, who killed decisively. Honorable Azura Huoxiu practiced the Azura tactics that focused on killing. Golden Crow Great Saint was a great demon at the same level as this demon, an immortal demon soul second tier. But their smell of blood was incomparable to that of the Celestial Wolf Sage in front of him. This demon was definitely the one with the most blood on his hands among all the experts that Lin Feng had come into contact with. He was a super butcher who had taken the most lives. Actually, there was no need for Long Yi to introduce him. Lin Feng had already guessed his identity the moment he saw Celestial Wolf Sage. When he stood next to Long Yi, he was even more certain. Killing Prison Heavenly Wolf, also known as Celestial Wolf Sage, was the #1 general and gold medal fighter under the Enchantress. He had the most powerful double-flowered rod, and had made great contributions to the Enchantress's conquest of Infinite Wasteland. He was famous for his military prowess. Compared to the mysterious Enchantress, Many people were more familiar with this wolf. It was rumored that this demon was the enchantress's junior brother. Like the enchantress and Long Yi, he cultivated the demon race's top secret technique, the Book of Primordial Chaos Demon. Coupled with his extraordinary talent, he was extremely powerful. Although he was only at the second level of the indestructible demon soul realm, there were few who could match him in Infinite Wasteland. It was almost publicly acknowledged by the entire demon world that if he hadn't always loyally followed the enchantress, and had instead chosen to fight on his own, the title of the demon race's 10 sages would most likely have been squeezed out. Even unparalleled great demons like the Golden Crow Sage and Qiongqi Sage, who were ranked among the demon race's 10 sages, might not be able to gain the upper hand when facing the Celestial Wolf Sage. There were even rumors that the Golden Crow Sage had once been defeated by him, and only did not suffer a great loss because of the bird-type demon race's speed advantage. Although this information was only a rumor, whether it was true or false, it indirectly proved this wolf demon's valiant strength. 3 sword strikes should be enough, right? Lin Feng calculated in his heart. Although the Celestial Wolf Sage hadn't revealed his true form, and just his human form brought him an even greater sense of oppression than Sword Venerable Guanchong, his expression was as calm as ever. Right at this moment, the branches and leaves of the tree that flickered with white light around them suddenly began to shake violently, and many ripple-like patterns appeared. The expressions of Lin Feng, Long Yi, the Celestial Wolf Sage, and the ochre-clothed old lady all shifted slightly. They immediately felt that within each ripple, there was an extremely terrifying demonic aura surging, and it was about to emerge from the ripples. I'll leave that Jade Capital Mountain with you for now. The Celestial Wolf Sage looked at Lin Feng and grinned, then turned his head and said to Long Yi and the ochre-clothed old lady, "Let's go." Long Yi smiled lightly and waved her hand at Lin Feng. "Sect leader Lin, we can only chat next time." Without the slightest hesitation, they immediately flashed away. Looking at those ripples, he immediately understood that the current cloudy forest realm, after being controlled by the Golden Rock Great Sage, was like a huge magic array. Through the cloudy forest trees, which were connected by the spiritual qi, he could quickly transport the demon experts under his command to any location in the medium-class world. There were more than 10 ripples flashing together in front of them, which meant that more than 10 demon race great sages were about to descend here. Although the Celestial Wolf Sage was bloodthirsty and crazy, arrogant and domineering, it didn't mean that he was muddle-headed. He had no interest in being ganged up on. Lin Feng also flew back at the same time. Under the suppression of this dimensional realm, he, Yin Mingyue, Long Yi, the Celestial Wolf Sage, and the others all faced the same problem, which was that their movements were greatly restricted. Although they could still break through the void, they would be compressed by the world power of the Cloud Forest world, to the extent that they couldn't fly at full speed. The spatial boundary power of the Cloud Forest world would also interfere with their escape techniques, making them unable to reach the predetermined location. This made it very difficult for Lin Feng and the others to meet up after they scattered, while Qiongqi Great Sage and the others who were in pursuit could easily gather superior forces to besiege and annihilate them with the help of the world power, just like real beasts, separating lone prey, and then hunting. Just as he left the place, Lin Feng immediately felt more than 10 extremely powerful demonic auras spread out behind him, and then they split into 2 directions, most of them chasing Long Yi and the others, while there were 3 other great demons chasing after Lin Feng. 3 demon race great sages who achieved the immortal demon soul realm. A Qiongqi with a pair of wings on its back that looked like both a bull and a tiger, a huge golden-winged roc, and a bird-type great demon sun-swallowing eagle that was surrounded by black fog from head to toe. Among the 3 demon race great sages, 2 were bird-type, and their flying speed was extremely fast. The remaining Qiongqi's speed wasn't slow either, and they chased after Lin Feng together. Lin Feng's divine soul fused with Jade Capital Mountain, and the burden was huge. His own magic power circulation was sluggish, and his flying speed was greatly reduced to begin with. At this moment, being suppressed and bound by the Cloud Forest world's world power, his speed was even slower. Compared to the 3 demon race great sages, he was simply like a snail crawling. In the blink of an eye, he was about to be caught up. Oh no, they're going to catch up. Not a chance. Lin Feng curled his lips, lightly tapping his glabella with his finger. The gate of heaven opened wide above his head, clear light surged, and vast purple qi gushed out, enveloping his entire person. Above Lin Feng's head, Jade Capital Mountain, and the profound heaven treasure tree slowly rose, purple qi enveloping the surroundings. Jade Capital Mountain didn't return to its original size, and it just floated above Lin Feng's head. The branches and leaves of the profound heaven treasure tree on the mountain swayed, emitting balls of seven-colored treasure light. The seven-colored treasure light opened a path and instantly tore through the void. It flew with Lin Feng and instantly disappeared without a trace. The three demon race great sages, who had already caught up to Lin Feng, revealed looks of surprise. In their eyes, Lin Feng's flying speed was extremely slow, as if he was only at the yuanying stage. But just as they were about to catch up to Lin Feng, clear light surged above Lin Feng's head. His body was suddenly enveloped by purple qi, and he disappeared without a trace the next moment. The golden-winged roc was still somewhat indignant. Their race was the fastest in the world, even faster than other bird species demons like the Kuanpeng and the sun-devouring condor. However, when it used its speed to fly through the void, it still couldn't catch up to Lin Feng. Qiongqi said in a deep voice, "How can he still be so fast under the suppression of the world power? Who is this person?" The sun-devouring condor said gloomily, "Perhaps he borrowed some treasure. If he relied on his own cultivation level, this person must be a third-level essence soul realm human expert. If that's the case, he will be discovered by Emperor Rock the moment he enters this dimensional realm. In any case, this person's strength has exceeded our expectations. We have to report this to Emperor Rock." As the golden-winged roc spoke, the golden roc great sage's voice sounded from the sea of trees. It came from all directions and filled the entire world as if the world was speaking. "I already know about this matter. Just continue." The three demon race great sages responded in unison. Qiongqi tilted his head slightly and received a voice transmission from his clansman. He said, "That monk has lured his sex elders here. Emperor Rock has opened the realm and let him in. Let's deal with him first." The golden-winged roc and the sun-devouring condor nodded in unison. The white light beneath their feet flickered as they sank into the ripples and disappeared. Lin Feng's control over Mount Yujing, the cyclic purple qi, and the mystic heavenly treasure tree were getting better and better. He used the mystic heavenly treasure tree to tear through space-time and temporarily escape the pursuit of the three great demons. He didn't have the time to tangle with them. Breaking the golden roc great sage's control over the cloud forest realm was the key to resolving the problem. The 9 glory sky crumbling array diagram and the 10-odd cloud forest trees were the truly valuable items. Apart from that, for Lin Feng, taking back that Buddhist Sarira along the way is also a pretty good harvest. As he was calculating, the system's notification suddenly sounded in Lin Feng's ears again. "The lost relics of the Great Thunderclap Monastery have been discovered near the host." Lin Feng was immediately amused. "Heh, my luck today isn't bad." Chapter 450. Borrowing the power of the profound sky treasure tree to fly. Lin Feng was in a pretty good mood. This meant that facing the suppression of the cloud forest realm, the profound sky treasure tree and Jade Capital Mountain still had room to move. Because of the barrier of the realm's power, if Yan Mingyue and the rest wanted to pass through the void and leave the cloud forest realm to return to the divine land, or if Long Yi and the heavenly wolf great sages party wanted to return to infinite wasteland, it was all a dream. The major powers outside couldn't enter, and the people inside couldn't leave either. Looking at it now, if Lin Feng, who had Jade Capital Mountain with him, attacked with all his might, he had a chance to leave this dimensional realm. But he didn't plan to do so. He didn't come to this cloud forest realm for a day trip. So when he heard the system notification sound in his mind again, informing him that a Sarira was discovered nearby, Lin Feng was instantly delighted. Out of cautious considerations before, Lin Feng didn't make a move to capture that monk who walked together with the demon race. Originally, he was prepared to find an opportunity in the future. Who knew that the other party would actually bump into him again? Lin Feng followed the system notification and walked towards the depths of the white light tree sea. From far away, he felt a vast and vigorous magic power fluctuation trembling nonstop. This kind of magic power fluctuation is somewhat familiar. Lin Feng thought about it and had an answer in his heart. It's the Great Thunderclap Monastery's Infinite Light Buddha Sutra of the Five-Direction Buddha Sutra. Furthermore, it's the orthodox lineage. It's even more profound than the Buddhist scripture true meaning contained in that Buddhist statue rubbing I obtained back then. It's very likely that it's a Buddhist major power monk who cultivates the Amitabha Sutra. The Infinite Light Buddha Sutra of the Five-Direction Buddha Sutra was divided into 3 parts. The general principle Amitabha Sutra, the Buddhist scripture Great Light Mantra, as well as the 3,000 times illumination method of combat techniques. In the past, Lin Feng once obtained a Buddha statue rubbing with Zhu Yi's profound fortune. That rubbing contained the true meaning of the Great Light Mantra. After Lin Feng and his disciple cultivated and comprehended it, there were many benefits to their cultivation. Zhu Yi even integrated the true meaning of light and completed the cultivation of forming a pill cauldron and forming the golden elixir. After mastering the Great Light Mantra, he can derive the various battle techniques of the 3,000 illumination technique. It's just that Lin Feng did not do that, because it was not really necessary. But the lack of the general principle of the Amitabha Sutra made him a bit regretful. Speaking of which, of the 5 Tathagata Sutras, Lin Feng has already consecutively obtained the Mahavairochana Sutra, the Unmovable Tathagata Sutra, and the Infinite Light Tathagata Sutra, but the 3 sutras all lack the core general principles. Jade Capital Mountain was compatible with the spirit. Although it caused Lin Feng's channeling of dermic power to become sluggish, it also allowed him to further conceal his aura and tracks. Originally, he had the system to help conceal his tracks. Now it was even easier for him to hide his tracks. He walked among the sea of trees of white light. His entire person seemed to be completely integrated into this world. He didn't leave a single trace. He slowly approached the place where the power of the Buddhist Dharma was vibrating. After walking for a while, voices came from the dense forest ahead. Yuan Xiang, did you deliberately lure this old monk here? An old voice sounded. Lin Feng stopped in his tracks. Through the dense foliage, he saw 2 people standing face to face not far ahead. One of them was dressed in gray. He had a spiky buzz cut and a gloomy expression. He was the Buddhist cultivator who had come with Cheong Qi and the other demons. The Saraira Lin Feng wanted was with him. And opposite this monk with the Dharma name of Yuan Xiang, stood an old monk dressed in moon-white monk robes. His monk robes appeared old, but they were abnormally clean. He stood there, surrounded by ancient tree branches and leaves that flickered with white light. But looking at it, the old monk seemed even more dazzling than the surrounding white light. He was like the most primitive and purest light in the universe. Yuan Xiang said gloomily, "Uncle Master Dade, disciple has offended you today. But in the future, Uncle Master will definitely understand disciple's painstaking efforts. Everything is for the blood feud of the Great Thunderclap Monastery's destruction." Zen Master Dade's expression was calm. He looked at the gloomy expression on Yuan Xiang's face. Yuan Xiang's eyes were filled with hostility. He slowly shook his head. "So now you want to betray your master and destroy your ancestors? First, you refined the Saraira of my eminent monk's remains into an enchanted item. Now, you've joined forces with the demons to lure this old monk here to ambush and kill me." Yuan Xiang said in a low voice. "Yes, disciple knows that my sins are grave. I won't be able to enter paradise after death, and will definitely enter eternal hell. But even so, I must avenge the Great Thunderclap Monastery. So what if you join forces with the demons?" Yuan Xiang gritted his teeth and said, "The Great Thunderclap Monastery has educated thousands of people in the past. Every time there was a famine, the monks in the monastery would go out to do good deeds. They would give medicine, quell the floods, and save the people. But in the end, all the other forces in the human cultivation world joined forces to attack the Great Thunderclap Monastery. They killed my Buddhist disciples and destroyed the ancient monastery in my later years. Even the Saraira of the elders in my sect was taken away. I hate it." Yuan Xiang's eyes were blood-red and his voice was hoarse, like an angry beast wailing. What is the difference between this filthy divine land and Tianhuang mainland where the demons run amok? As long as I can make the culprits like Taishu Temple, Mount Shu Sword Sect, and the Great Zhou Dynasty pay with blood, so what if I join forces with the demons? Zen Master Dade's expression was calm and his gaze was gentle. He looked at Yuan Xiang and sighed softly. What you are doing now is no different from those executioners. Yuan Xiang chuckled strangely. As long as I can avenge my sect, so what if I fall into hell? Zen Master Dade shook his head and said calmly, 1,000 years of cultivation is lost in a day. Yuan Xiang, you have also cultivated the wondrous techniques of the Buddhist sect for many years, but now, you are only left with a heart full of hatred and obsession. Unfortunately, your obsession is not to avenge the great Thunderclap Monastery. Yuan Xiang's eyes widened and anger appeared on his face. What did you say? Zen Master Dade said silently. Your obsession is fear and regret. It is for your own peace of mind. Yuan Xiang stared at Zen Master Dade like a wounded beast. What about you, Uncle Master Dade? Back then, you took on the heavy responsibility of guarding the monastery, but you could only watch helplessly as the enemy stepped into the great Thunderclap Pure Land. Don't you hate it? Zen Master Dade looked up at the sky. Buddha is merciful and also has methods to subdue demons. But that is still an external path and not the foundation of the Buddhist Dharma. Because of hatred and obsession, you willingly threw yourself into hell and entered the demonic path. Even if you get what you want, you will still sink into the sea of bitterness and get further and further away from the shore. He looked at Yuan Xiang with pity and said slowly, Yuan Xiang, you made your own choice. It is not a mistake, but it is a wrong path that goes against the Buddhist Dharma. You are still you, but you are no longer a disciple of the Buddhist sect. Zen Master Dade patted his monk robes. Today you helped the demon race to lure me here. Although I don't know your true intentions, I naturally won't let you get what you want. You have tarnished the sariras of the ancestors, so I will naturally take them back. Everyone's path is different, so we can only walk our own. Monk Yuan Xiang nodded. Uncle Master Dade, you are right. This is also the last time disciple will call you Uncle Master. It is time to reminisce about the old days. Yuan Xiang, you can leave now. A bestial roar rang out, and the Qiongqi that had chased after Lin Feng emerged from the ripples of white light. It stood beside Yuan Xiang and faced Zen Master Dade. The sound of wings flapping rang out in the air. Amidst the whistling wind, the golden-winged roc and the sun-swallowing eagle appeared behind Zen Master Dade, one on the left and one on the right. The three great demons stood in a triangular formation, surrounding the eminent Buddhist monk in the middle. Zen Master Dade faced the encirclement of the three great sages of the demon race. His expression was calm, but his gaze also became incomparably solemn. Besides Qiongqi, is there also the golden-winged roc and the sun-swallowing eagle? He looked at the golden-winged roc. The one who refined and fused with this medium-class world's will was the golden roc great sage? A cold light flashed in the golden-winged roc's sharp eyes. You will know very soon. With a flap of its wings, tens of thousands of golden lights flew toward Zen Master Dade. Zen Master Dade looked at Yuan Xiang, who was retreating, and finally sighed. He retracted his gaze, put his palms together, and chanted the name of Buddha. His entire body suddenly shone brightly, and he fought with the golden-winged roc. Don't waste time. The sun-swallowing eagle let out a shrill cry, and black gas spread out from its body, directly devouring most of Zen Master Dade's Buddha light. Meanwhile, Qiongqi also roared and joined the battle. The three great sages of the demon race joined the battle together, immediately suppressing Zen Master Dade. After the three great demons appeared, Lin Feng slowly retreated. He did not need to see to know the old monk's outcome. From the moment he was tricked into entering the Cloud Forest realm, the outcome was already destined. With the same realm of cultivation, facing the siege of three great demons by himself, moreover in an environment like the Cloud Forest realm that would restrict his cultivation, defeat was something that was bound to happen sooner or later. However, if the other party wanted to capture him alive, it would also take some effort. I remember that old wolf said that the number must be made up of living people. It's just that. What exactly does the Golden Rock Great Sage want to do? As Lin Feng thought about it, he circled to another direction. There, Monk Yuan Xiang was already far away from the battle circle of the 4 essence spirit level powerhouses. His expression was gloomy, and there was a faint sense of loss. He stood there blankly for a long time before he said in a low voice, "Yes, Uncle Master Dade, you're right. I'm afraid. I'm afraid that the enemy who destroyed my great thunderclap Pure Land in the past was too strong. I regret guarding the pagoda forest back then. I saw the Sorrow Iron Tree being destroyed, and the enemy rushing into the pagoda forest like a tidal wave, but I didn't have the courage to protect the pagoda forest with my life. In the end, I escaped with a few relics." Monk Yuan Xiang let out a deep breath. "I told myself that by escaping, I can at least protect a portion of the sect elder's relics from falling into the enemy's hands. But actually, it's just an excuse. I'm afraid, I want to escape, I don't dare to face the enemy. I've overcome the difficulties of life and death, I've passed the void lightning tribulation, but when I face the world-destroying attacks of the powerhouses, I still can't suppress the fear. I feel ashamed, I feel regret. I desperately want to do something. I want to do something for the Great Thunderclap Monastery. I want to make up for my cowardice in the past. I want to kill the enemy who makes me afraid." Yuan Xiang's eyes gradually turned blood red. "Even if I have to pay any price, even if I have to resort to unscrupulous means." A voice suddenly sounded behind him. "Buddhist cultivation is about seeing one's heart and understanding one's true self. It's not a bad thing to be aware of the flaws in one's heart, but you don't want to strengthen your spirit and will from the root. Instead, you only want to solve the superficial problems. No wonder your sect elders say that you've gone astray." Yuan Xiang was shocked. He quickly turned around and saw Lin Feng looking at him calmly. Lin Feng said indifferently, "Hand over the relics you have." Chapter 451. When Yuan Xiang saw Lin Feng, he could not help but be shocked. Almost instinctively, his body lit up with Buddhist light. Within the Buddhist light, there was a faint shadow of a Bodhi tree swaying continuously. A solemn and majestic aura spread out. As the branches of the Bodhi tree swayed, Buddhist chants rang out. Lin Feng could only smell the scent of sandalwood. Thousands of light waves swept towards Lin Feng. The light waves faintly condensed into a dazzling light screen in midair, about to cover Lin Feng. At this moment, because Lin Feng's spirit contained Yujing Mountain, his mana was sluggish and his cultivation was rapidly declining. It would be very difficult for him to face the late Yuanying Yuan Xiang. If he used his sword, it would be like using a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. However, this was not a problem for Lin Feng. He smiled slightly and tapped his brow lightly with his finger. A small black dot the size of a grain of rice flew out from between his brows and grew in the air. In an instant, it turned into an incomparably huge green hall that was as grand as the divine palace of a celestial emperor. The green hall sat on a thick black foundation, deep and distant. The hall's door was pushed open, and a tall, bronze-skinned youth walked out slowly. He stood at the entrance of the hall, silently looking at Yuan Xiang in front of him. It was Lin Feng's Cyan Tree clone. The Cyan Tree clone looked at Yuan Xiang and smiled. He controlled the Kuanping Hall to descend from the sky, pressing down on Yuan Xiang. As if Mount Tai was crushing an egg, Yuan Xiang did not even have time to use his Buddhist Dharma before he was suppressed by the Kuanping Hall. The thousands of Buddhist lights all dissipated. Yuan Xiang still wanted to struggle. He shouted with his eyes wide open. A ball of bright golden light flew out from his arms. It was a total of 16 relics, arranged in a formation in the air. Sabodhi Perfect Treasure Light. These 16 relics emitted balls of Buddhist light. Within the Buddhist light, the shadow of a Bodhi tree appeared clearly. It emitted the profound Buddhist concept of wisdom and enlightenment. The light shadow of the Bodhi tree almost solidified. It rose from the ground below Kuanping Hall, wanting to lift it up. The profound concept of energy had rather obtained the true essence of perfection in the Buddhist technique. It was flawless and without the slightest flaw, and it was a complete whole. It carried the great aspiration and boldness of guiding the people of the world to the other side. The Taishu clone chuckled and formed a seal with both hands. The appearance of the Kunpeng Hall suddenly changed. The originally green hall suddenly became the same color as the black foundation beneath it, and the aura of power within the entire hall became extremely heavy. Even the Bodhi tree summoned by the monk Yuan Xiang with 16 relics could not withstand such a powerful pressure from the Kunpeng Hall. It was like fragile porcelain placed under a mountain, instantly shattering into powder. Lin Feng shrugged his shoulders and put away Kunpeng Hall. He captured monk Yuan Xiang and immediately left this place. Almost at the same time, Lin Feng's attack had alerted the Golden Rock Great Sage. If he did not immediately escape and hide his tracks again, he would be discovered immediately. Not far away, the 3 demon race great sages who were besieging Zen Master Dade also discovered Lin Feng's existence at the first moment. They were all shocked. We didn't find his whereabouts at all before. How did this person do it? The Golden Rock Great Sage, who was in the center of the world, was also slightly surprised by this question. His huge body shook slightly, and his sharp eyes flashed. Oh, interesting. Beside him, a golden-winged rock asked, "My emperor, who is that person?" The Golden Rock Great Sage said, "Based on his strength, it is similar to the power of the Kunpeng." The golden-winged rock beside him pondered and said, "There is no Kunpeng among the demon race that entered this world. Moreover, after you merge with the medium-class worlds will to suppress it, unless it is a Kunpeng of the undying demon soul realm, it cannot move freely." Some time ago, the resurrection of the ancient Kunpeng failed. Half of his remains were brought back by the Kunpeng race, while the other half fell into the hands of a human. Slowly the Golden Rock Great Sage said, "The master of the Celestial Gate, Lin Feng." "That's him." The Golden Crow Great Sage was also suppressed by him. The Golden Winged Rock said, "It is said that his cultivation is unfathomable, and his origin is a mystery. Until now, no one has been able to figure out his background." The Golden Rock Great Sage said calmly, "It is okay. Since he is in this medium-class world, there will be a time to meet him. Tianluan, you should also go and capture the prey. We can leave the master of the Celestial Gate alone for now. We will deal with him later." The golden-winged rock named Tianluan hesitated for a moment, then lowered his head and said, "My emperor, if we accept the Cheongqi race like this, we must guard against their retaliation. The Cheongqi race is extremely evil by nature. In their consciousness, there is no concept of loyalty and honor at all. They even regard betrayal as beauty. Even in their own race, there is often vicious competition for the position of clan master. Such a race is really not worthy of trust." Although Golden Rock Tianluan's words were not harsh, he was questioning the Golden Rock Great Sage's decision. The Golden Rock Great Sage was not angry. He just said lightly, "Tianluan, it is not that the Cheongqi race does not have the concept of loyalty. It is just that this race has always been loyal to one thing, and that is great power. Therefore, under my command, they will not have the chance to betray me, because I am strong enough that they cannot even think of betraying me." His tone was calm and gentle, without the slightest arrogance. It was as if he was talking about something that could not be more normal. It was not a bluff, but a natural confidence and bearing born from his own great power. Golden Rock Tianluan bowed his head slightly and said, "Yes, my emperor." He flapped his wings and flew high, leaving the center of the sea of white trees. A black shadow brushed past him and flew toward the Golden Rock Great Sage. It was the Cheongqi race. Golden Rock Tianluan did not stop and flew all the way into the sea of trees. Cheongqi race landed in front of the Golden Rock Great Sage, and said with a ferocious smile, "The first one." He opened his mouth and spat out a black ball of light with a person sitting in it. This person looked a little listless. The starlight around his body was extinguished and constantly fluctuated, resisting the invasion of the demon power in the black ball of light. He had come with Lin Feng and the others. He was the primordial spirit offering of the Great Qin dynasty, Dao Master Xingdou. When Dao Master Xingdou saw the huge golden rock that seemed to have become the incarnation of the whole world, his eyes suddenly filled with despair. It turned out to be this great demon. The Golden Rock Great Sage glanced at Tao Master Xingdou and nodded slightly. His left eye lit up with a glimmer of light, and a small black dot flew out of the glimmer. The black dot kept growing and turning into a disc with a diameter of hundreds of miles. The disc was covered with simple and mysterious lines. The lines crisscrossed and formed a huge groove in the center of the disc. The surface of the disc outside the groove was divided into 9 squares of the same size. Before Tao Master Xingdou had time to speak, he fell into one of the squares. The black ball of light formed by Qiongqi race's demon power disappeared. Tao Master Xingdou wanted to take the opportunity to escape, but a golden brilliance emerged in the square and fixed him in place. Tao Master Xingdou directly unfolded his primordial spirit incarnation and turned into a bright galaxy, but he could not escape the shackles of the golden brilliance. The Golden Rock Great Sage let out a long, loud and strange whistle. Under the distortion of the bright galaxy in the golden light, he returned to the human form of Tao Master Xingdou. He could not continue to manifest the primordial spirit incarnation. Tao Master Xingdou showed a pained expression. The golden light that imprisoned him rose into the sky and turned into a thick beam of light. In the blink of an eye, the color of the beam of light gradually changed from pure gold to colorful, flashing with 7-colored brilliance. It looked extremely demonic. In the center of the beam of light, there was a faint flame that kept jumping. This beam of light, and the flame in it could be seen by everyone in the Cloud Forest realm. Lin Feng had just suppressed Yuan Xiang and obtained his 16 Sariras. Then he saw the pillar of light light up. The direction was right at the center of the sea of white light trees. He lightly furrowed his brows. That pillar of light and flames give me an ominous feeling. While thinking, Lin Feng suddenly felt a strong fluctuation of Dharma power appear nearby, but it was not the 3 great demons who had besieged Monk Dade before. The terrifying power was from a great demon at the 2nd realm of the immortal demon soul. The treasure light flashed in front of him, and a pearl rushed out of the dense forest of the white light tree sea. The pearl was only in shape, but it was not really solid. Instead, it looked like a cloud that had gathered and formed. The cloud suddenly opened, revealing a figure. It was the successor of Taishu Temple, Yan Mingyue. Behind Yan Mingyue, a violent wave of demonic power swept through the dense foliage, and a huge mutated beast rushed out. Lin Feng looked at the mutated beast, only to see that its body was like that of a dragon but had no scales. Instead, it was covered in bird feathers. The wings on its back spread out, covering the sky and the sun. It had the head of an eagle and the body of a dragon. As its 4 claws moved, the wind and thunder stirred. Its aura was astonishing. Sea Dragon Hawk? Lin Feng immediately recognized the origin of this demon. It was a capable subordinate of the Golden Rock Great Sage, belonging to the Sea Dragon Hawk race. It was a great demon at the 2nd realm of the immortal demon soul realm, and it was famous in the entire infinite wilderness. Looking at Yan Mingyue again, she was really impressive. She was not afraid facing the Sea Dragon Hawk at the 2nd realm of the immortal demon soul realm with the cultivation of the 1st realm of the immortal demon soul realm. She shed her human body and revealed her primordial spirit incarnation, which was a mass of black and white blended yin and yang energy. With the help of the magic treasure Heavenly Exquisite Jade, the yin and yang energy that Yan Mingyue transformed into rolled in midair. Even though it was suppressed by the domain power of the Cloud Forest realm, it shifted the void and turned into a yin-yang chaos hole, which directly swallowed the Sea Dragon Hawk. Black and white blended and rotated, crushing the Sea Dragon Hawk that fell into it like a millstone. The Sea Dragon Hawk opened its claws and directly grabbed Yan Mingyue's magic power, tearing it apart and instantly destroying the small world formed by the yin-yang chaos hole. Reverse yin and yang, reversal of 2 poles. Yan Mingyue let out a long cry, and the yin and yang energy that was torn apart by the Sea Dragon Hawk suddenly revolved in the opposite direction, turning back into the chaos hole. Then it took the initiative to explode, temporarily stopping the Sea Dragon Hawk's attack momentum. If it were any other time, Yan Mingyue might fight with the Sea Dragon Hawk, but very quickly, a Qiongqi and a golden rock rushed out from the sea of white light trees. The power of the medium-sized world was also unceasingly suppressing her. and she did not dare to stay any longer. She said to Lin Feng, "Go." Before she finished, intense demonic power waves came from another direction. Then, a white-clothed barefooted Long Yi and a gorgeous woman dressed in red rushed out from the sea of trees together. Following closely behind them, led by the great sage Qiongqi, there were a total of 6 demon race great sages in pursuit. When Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue saw them, they all revealed expressions of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Chapter 452. Whether it was Yan Mingyue or Long Yi, the relationship between Lin Feng and them had always been rather subtle. They were allies but also potential enemies. While cooperating, they were also on guard against each other. They often dug pits together to bury others, but if one of them was slightly careless and didn't keep up with the rhythm, then they would be dragged into the pit together. As for Yan Mingyue and Long Yi, that was even more purely old enemies. Strictly speaking, the only time they cooperated with tacit understanding was that battle to the death over 10 years ago. The result was that both suffered heavy losses and almost died together. But it was also because of that battle that both of them broke through their bottlenecks, and their cultivation rose to a higher level. It was clearly a matter of mutual benefit, but they cooperated so awkwardly. The relationship between the two could be imagined. In that battle back then, if one side was slightly weaker, then the strong naturally wouldn't mind completely getting rid of the weak. Except, now that they were in the Cloud Forest world at the same time, and had fallen into the Golden Rock Great Sage's hunting ground, everyone had become prey together. There was practically no need for any communication. Yan Mingyue and Long Yi joined hands to deal with a common enemy first. Great Sage Qiongqi spat out black light from his mouth. Long Yi frowned slightly and lightly flicked her 5 fingers. Balls of deep blue light met the black light and blocked it. But that black light kept seeping into the deep blue light screen. It didn't dispel the deep blue light screen, but rather rapidly turned the deep blue light screen into black. Seeing this scene, Lin Feng secretly nodded. Qiongqi's innate divine ability is indeed troublesome. It's the same as the true blood river water, specializing in polluting the opponent's mana or demonic energy. It's extremely vile. Long Ye's deep blue light screen was polluted by Qiongqi's black light, and turned into a black light screen, instead sweeping towards Long Yi. The originally flickering white light sea of trees instantly seemed to have turned from day to night. The sun couldn't be seen, only endless darkness remained. Long Yi didn't have any intention of resisting. Instead, she turned around and after brushing past Yan Mingyue, she faced the great sage sea dragon eagle in another direction. Yan Mingyue gave up on the sea dragon eagle, and spun the great sky jade in her hand. Balls of cloud chi first blocked Qiongqi. The white cloud formed by the heavenly exquisite jade instantly turned into a vast expanse of whiteness. Its surface area was not very large. At least, it could not compare to the sea of clouds that Lin Feng had seen when the great Zhou dynasty's essence soul consecrator, cloud-riding immortal, had turned into. However, these white clouds did not dissipate. They stood in front of Yan Mingyue and blocked the path of great sage Qiongqi's black light screen. The two sides pressed against each other, neither giving way. The white cloud could not destroy the black light screen, and the black light screen could not advance any further. The two sides directly divided the world in front of them into 2 parts, black and white. What caught Lin Feng's attention was that the Qiongqi demon tribe, which had always been good at polluting other people's mana, could not pollute the white mist transformed by the heavenly jade. Yan Mingyue once again revealed her primordial spirit incarnation. She transformed into yin and yang qi and rushed into the white clouds. The white clouds suddenly rolled violently, and the clouds and mist dispersed to both sides. A tall and majestic palace emerged from the white clouds, as if the 9 heavens immortal palace had descended to the mortal world. Great sky, the center of the sky, the master of the 4 directions, the residence of the celestial emperor. The surrounding sea of white light trees were shaking and breaking, and the thick branches and leaves were also retreating. The white cloud immortal palace was magnificent, even larger than Lin Feng's Kuanprung Hall. As soon as the white cloud immortal palace appeared, great sage Qiongqi's black light screen immediately shattered. Great sage Qiongqi let out a shrill howl. and a strange rune on his forehead flashed with light. His entire body was enveloped by a huge black ball of light, and it collided with the white cloud immortal palace formed by the heavenly jade. One black and one white light shook the heaven and earth. They clashed again, and the black mist and light scattered in all directions. Violent energy shock waves spread to the surroundings, sweeping everything. And on the other side, Long Yi had blocked the sea dragon hawk for Yan Mingyue. Her eyes were covered with a layer of strange blue light. She put her hands together, and a blue ball of light appeared in front of her. Then Long Yi flicked her fingers lightly, and in an instant, tens of thousands of talismans were shot into the blue ball of light. The sea dragon hawk that had pounced in front of her immediately stopped, and stared solemnly at Long Yi. It blurted out, "Book of Primordial Demon?" Long Yi didn't answer, but the blue ball of light in front of her suddenly became dark and gloomy. But such a ball with a diameter of less than a foot gave people a feeling of incomparable heaviness. That heaviness wasn't something that could be described by simple weight. It wasn't something that could be described by simple matter, but the combination of endless space, long years, and the wills of tens of thousands of living beings, the creation of a universe, and the heaviness of a world. Lin Feng looked at the ball of light in front of Long Yi, and also revealed a slightly shocked expression. This was the first time he had seen Long Yi make a move with his own eyes. The Book of Primordial Demon was indeed extraordinary, creating a small world that was even more complete than Lin Feng's small world of the heavens. It was a bit similar to the world formed when Lin Feng, Mount Yujing, the profound sky treasure tree, and the cyclic violet qi merged into one, driving Mount Yujing to collide with it with full force. Although there was still a lot of difference in power, in terms of concept, it was the same as Lin Feng's, and was already infinitely close to the true world of creation. In that dark and gloomy ball of light, time seemed to be rapidly reversed, and all living beings retreated back to the state of the ignorant universe before the primordial world was formed. Immediately afterwards, it began to explode, and the power of creation and annihilation madly blasted towards the sea dragon hawk. Whether it was Lin Feng or Zhu Yi, they both used their own mana to create a small world. After trapping the enemy, the small world would shatter and simulate the annihilation of the world, thereby killing and injuring the trapped enemy. And this time, Long Yi shockingly didn't need to first trap the enemy in the world. Instead, she directly obtained the power to simulate the annihilation of the world, and then controlled it, attacking the enemy with her own will. The divine ability of the Great Tao recorded in the Book of Primordial Demon, Primordial Annihilation Demonic Light. Facing Long Ye's attack, even with the Sea Dragon Hawk's cultivation of the second level of the indestructible demon soul, it didn't dare to be careless. With a long cry, its appearance suddenly changed. All the feathers on its body retreated, and what replaced it was a layer of shiny, pitch-black, crystal-like scales. Its head also changed, directly changing from the original eagle-like head to the appearance of a dragon's head. With a sky-shaking dragon roar, the sea dragon hawk completely shed its bird-like characteristics. From the outside, it already looked completely like a true dragon. As Lin Ming's body circled in the air, the faint sound of crashing waves could be heard. The surrounding void was shattered by him, completely changing shape. Endless waves tumbled about. The sea dragon hawk had transformed into a black crystal sea dragon, bringing with it endless blue waves as it descended into this dimensional realm. Facing Long Ye's primordial annihilation demonic light, the black crystal-like scales on the black crystal sea dragon's body trembled together, and all kinds of auras instantly went berserk. His own demonic qi, the spiritual qi of the endless waves, the spiritual qi of the cloudy forest world itself, and even Lin Feng and the others at the side felt their own spiritual qi tremble. All of the energy gathered together, as if the end of the world had arrived, triggering a tsunami that could destroy the world, meeting Long Ye's primordial annihilation demonic light. The intensity of this collision was even greater than the battle between Yan Mingyue and Great Sage Qiongqi just now. Lin Feng nodded repeatedly as he watched. First-tier primordial spirit and first-tier undying demon soul cultivation, fighting against a second-tier undying demon soul great demon without losing at all. They really can be called peerless beauties. However, To Great Sage Qiongqi and the Sea Dragon Hawk, this battle was not a battle between experts, but the most primitive and bloody hunt. Therefore, they had no intention of fighting alone. The surrounding demon race great sages immediately surrounded them, clearly wanting to gang up on them. Lin Feng frowned. Before figuring out what the Golden Rock Great Sage was doing, he really had no interest in tangling with Great Sage Qiongqi and the Sea Dragon Hawk here. Therefore, he lightly pinched his forehead, and the cyclic purple qi spread out. Yan Mingyue and Long Yi looked at each other, and with great tacit understanding, they decisively rushed into the vast purple qi while Great Sage Qiongqi and the Sea Dragon Hawk were forced away, and the other demon race great sages hadn't surrounded them yet. Lin Feng adopted a tacit attitude towards their actions. Right now, the Golden Rock Great Sage and the other demon race were the main enemies. Yan Mingyue and Long Yi, this pair of old enemies, could even run away like a mouse to be a cat's bridesmaid, so he naturally wouldn't mind temporarily joining forces. Lin Feng looked at the gorgeous red-clothed woman who appeared with Long Yi, and his expression was somewhat strange. This demon power fluctuation. Is it that ochre-clothed old woman? Although he was a little surprised, this gorgeous red-clothed woman who looked no more than 20 or 30 years old was indeed that doddering and kind old woman just now. At this moment, she was facing the siege of two demon race great sages. Unhurriedly, she danced gracefully, turning into a gorgeous red shadow that shuttled through the space. Layers of colorful mist spread out, pervading the sea of white light trees. Lin Feng shockingly saw that any ancient tree branches and leaves that came into contact with the colorful mist immediately dimmed, and then withered. It was as if they had been poisoned. That was not a simple life, nor was it a simple ancient tree. Under the control of the Golden Rock Great Sage, it had fused with the entire medium-class world, and was almost equivalent to a part of the world. But now, facing the colorful mist, it was actually continuously withering. This meant that a corner of the world was continuously collapsing. Such a poisonous mist was truly terrifying. The red-clothed woman turned her head to look at Lin Feng, and smiled brightly. Please leave with little Yi. I will bring up the rear. I thank sect leader Lin in advance. What rear? We can clearly leave together. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows. You're purposely giving yourself away. He suddenly thought of something. Wait, could it be? Lin Feng frowned slightly and didn't say anything more. The mysterious sky treasure tree emitted colorful light, breaking through the void. The cyclic purple qi swept up Yan Mingyue and Long Yi, and they escaped together, charging out of the encirclement. Great Sage Qiongqi and the Sea Dragon Hawk wanted to stop them, but they were blocked by the red-clothed woman. The last scene in Lin Feng's line of sight was that the red-clothed woman changed her appearance once again. Her gorgeous and flirtatious face suddenly became ordinary and unremarkable. Her red clothes also became white. Her appearance and age suddenly changed from looking 20 to 30 years old to 40-something years old. In the blink of an eye, that gorgeous red-clothed woman became an ordinary middle-aged woman dressed in white. But the demonic power around her body was even more terrifying. And the colorful mist floating out of her body also became white mist. Chapter 453. Compared to the colorful mist from before, the current white mist was very inconspicuous. But when Lin Feng faced the white mist, he immediately sounded the alarm in his heart, feeling a strong sense of danger. Even if he was not the target of the white mist, he still felt his heart palpitate. And when the great demons saw the white mist, their hair all stood up. Even Great Sage Qiongqi and Sea Dragon Hawk, who were at the second tier of the undying demon soul realm, had solemn expressions. This was the last scene in Lin Feng's vision before he escaped. The light and shadow in front of him changed, and he had already escaped into the void and disappeared. When Lin Feng stopped again, there was still a dense sea of white light trees in front of him. He put away Mount Yujing and the treasure tree purple gas on the mountain. Although this kind of power could break through the suppression of the cloudy forest realm's world power, it also made it easier for Golden Rock Great Sage to lock onto his position. Yan Mingyue and Long Yi were both enveloped by Lin Feng's cyclic purple gas previously, and did not witness the scene of him putting Mount Yujing into his divine soul. At this critical moment, they did not dare to use their spiritual power to investigate, and they obediently let Lin Feng carry them, not making any rash moves. But both of them were undoubtedly very shocked. After Golden Rock Great Sage took control of the Cloudy Forest Realm's world will, under the suppression, even powerhouses like Sword Venerable Guanchong, Shizongyue, and Heavenly Wolf Great Sage could not move freely, but Lin Feng did not seem to be affected. But both of them suppressed their bewilderment, and did not show it. That was Lady Umbrella just now, right? Yan Mingyue lightly tucked her hair behind her ear, and looked at Long Yi with a smile that was not a smile. The most mysterious demon race Great Sage under the Enchantress. She has always lived in seclusion, and I did not expect her to appear in this Cloudy Forest realm this time. Lin Feng looked at her. Lady Umbrella? Yan Mingyue nodded. That's right, the Enchantress's background is mysterious. Even our Taishu Temple does not know her race's background. She has no kin, but there are many powerhouses under her command, and many great demons. Some great demons either fight for the Enchantress, or guard a region, and rule over tens of thousands of demons. They are all famous demon powerhouses in the entire Tianhuang continent. For example, Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, his fame is not below the demon race 10 sages. Yan Mingyue glanced at Long Yi and continued, but there are also some demon race experts who are abnormally low-key. Their origins are also extremely mysterious. They live under the protection of the Heavenly Charm Great Sage, and live in seclusion. It is very difficult for outsiders to know the details. So it is still unknown how strong the forces under the Enchantress are. But as long as they exist, there will inevitably be some rumors. For example, that Lady Umbrella. From what I know, although she is low-key and mysterious, she is highly regarded by the Enchantress. She has very high attainments in both medicine and poison. It is just that she has always stayed behind the scenes, and it is the first time that she has stepped out into the limelight. Long Yi had been listening quietly the whole time, and at this time she laughed lowly. Aunt was just too quiet and moved. How could it be as exaggerated as Sister Yen said? She laughed softly and said, actually, Aunt often goes out to gather herbs alone, but she is low-key, and not many people know about it. Silently, Lin Feng said, this Lady Umbrella is a plant demon? Long Yi nodded, while Yan Mingyue, who was at the side, said, previously, there was news that Lady Umbrella was a mushroom that cultivated into a demon and eventually attained the Great Sage realm. Just now, I saw her battle style, and it seems that the rumors were true. Lin Feng agreed with Yan Mingyue, and thought, so it is a poisonous mushroom. Some mushrooms are poisonous and some are not. Generally speaking, the brighter the color, the more poisonous it is. In the beginning, when Lady Umbrella transformed into a human form, she was an inconspicuous old lady in ochre clothes, and her demon power was very calm. But when she transformed into a beautiful young woman in red clothes, she could use the poisonous fog magical power. The poison was so strong that even primordial spirit powerhouses had to be careful, and did not dare to come into contact with it. But in fact, some mushrooms that looked plain were also very poisonous, even more so than those colorful poisonous mushrooms. When Lady Umbrella transformed into an ordinary middle-aged woman in white clothes, the white poisonous fog that she emitted was even stronger. Even Great Sage Cheongqi and Sea Dragon Eagle, who were at the second tier of the Undying Demon Soul Realm, had to be careful. But Lin Feng frowned slightly. He had noticed a problem earlier, and that was that Lady Umbrella could change her battle power by changing her form. The white-clothed form was undoubtedly the strongest, but there were advantages and disadvantages. Lin Feng believed that Lady Umbrella could not maintain this form for a long time. And although the power of the white poisonous fog was strong, there was definitely a limit to it. Either the quantity was limited, or it was a huge burden on Lady Umbrella's own demon power. The red-clothed form was slightly weaker, but it should be Lady Umbrella's most commonly used battle form. Then what about the ochre old lady's appearance? Looking at the situation, that was the form that Lady Umbrella usually maintained. Lin Feng recalled that although Lady Umbrella's demon power seemed to be the weakest of the three forms, she was the most relaxed when facing the suppression of the world's will in the sea of white light trees. Among them, in terms of cultivation, Heavenly Wolf Great Sage was the highest. In terms of foundation, Long Yi and Lady Umbrella were both at the first tier of the undying demon soul realm, and were both demons from plants. However, when facing the suppression of the sea of white light trees, they were not as relaxed as Lady Umbrella, and when Lady Umbrella was fighting with the demon race experts on Golden Rock Great Sage's side, be it in the red-clothed form or the white-clothed form, they were both severely suppressed by the domain power of the cloudy forest realm. Lin Feng pondered for a moment, and a guess gradually formed in his mind. The form of that ochre old lady should also have something unique. Thinking of Lady Umbrella's action of staying behind to bring up the rear, Lin Feng felt that there was something strange about it. Yan Mingyue had previously mentioned that this Lady Umbrella had always kept a low profile under the Enchantress's command. She had always been active behind the scenes, and had never stepped onto the stage. She was also not good at fighting. She must have a special purpose for entering the cloudy forest realm this time. Lin Feng turned to look at Long Yi. The white-clothed girl was currently sitting on an ancient tree branch with a relaxed expression, her bare feet swinging lightly in midair, looking extremely relaxed. Seeing that Lin Feng was looking at her, Ling Yi laughed softly. "Aunt will be fine. Golden Rock Great Sage can't bear to kill her just like that. To the entire infinite wilderness and vast land. And is very precious. But don't forget that Golden Rock is busy trying to make up the numbers," Lin Feng said indifferently. He looked at Long Yi. "Now is it convenient for you to tell me what exactly Golden Rock Great Sage is planning?" Hearing Lin Feng's question, Yan Mingyue also looked towards Long Yi. She similarly doesn't know what the Golden Rock Sage is planning. Even though the Void Temple pays close attention to the movements of the demon race in the vast Heaven Wasteland continent, but in terms of the grasp of mutual intelligence between the demon races, Long Ye's side is naturally much clearer. Long Yi laughed. "Uncle Master isn't here, of course I can say it." Lin Feng curled his lips in his heart. How could he not see that although Heavenly Wolf Great Sage was Long Ye's Uncle Master, if Long Yi really wanted to do something, she might not necessarily care about Heavenly Wolf Great Sage's opinion. Long Yi glanced at Lin Feng, then turned to look at Yan Mingyue. Slowly she said, "Golden Rock Great Sage is very likely planning something. To be precise, it's not a real object with a material form, but a magical Dharma spell." "Dharma spell?" Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue looked at each other, neither of them making a sound. Golden Rock Great Sage was already an unparalleled great demon at the third realm of the indestructible demon soul. He had earth-shattering power and naturally grasped countless powerful magical Dharma spells. Not to mention that he also had the racial talent of the golden-winged Great Peng race. Even the enchantress who cultivated the Book of Primordial Demon could not say that he could win against him. What kind of magical Dharma spell would such a strong practitioner seek? Lin Feng's heart suddenly sank. Wait, according to the information I've seen before, the Book of Primordial Demon is the second volume of the demon race's supreme classics, Heavenly Tao Demon Scriptures. Because the first volume was lost, Book of Primordial Demon is publicly recognized as the #1 secret technique of the demon race. To be stronger than the Book of Primordial Demon, wouldn't that be? As expected, Long Yi silently said, "Golden Rock Great Sage, what he wants is you to Minghua." Yan Mingyue's expression suddenly became solemn. It was obvious that she knew what Yudu Minghua was. Lin Feng had never heard of Yudu Minghua before, but he didn't enter the system to check. That was because he knew what Yudu meant. Over 4,000 years ago, in that tragic race war between the Divine Land and Heaven Wasteland, the one who fell in the end was the last generation of the demon race's sacred emperor. People called her Yu Huang, and her great name was Heavenly Sea Yudu. Yudu race was an extremely mysterious demon race, but it was also incomparably terrifying. Back then, this branch of demon race had grasped all the Heavenly Tao demon scriptures, including the first volume, and ruled over Heaven Wasteland. However, in the battle back then, Yu Huang's celestial sea fell, and the rest of the Yudu race vanished without a trace. As a result, the first volume of Heavenly Tao demon scriptures was lost in Heaven Primordial World. After the battle, countless strong practitioners of the demon race, including the enchantress, hoped to find the whereabouts of the Yudu race, but after 4,000 years, they still had no results. After Yu Huang's celestial sea fell, There was no new generation of demon sacred emperor, and in a certain sense, it had a lot to do with this situation. Yudu Minghua, without asking, was the almighty divine art that Yu Huang Celestial Sea had executed back then. Even though this demon sacred emperor had died, the human cultivation world had paid an incomparably huge price for his fall. Back then, the sect master of Mount Shu Sword Sect and the abbot of Great Thunderclap Monastery had both died in battle. The temple master of Taishu Temple had retired from seclusion due to heavy injuries, and more than half of the grand elders had died. As the main battlefield, Great Thunderclap Monastery was almost completely destroyed. At that time, the Great Zhou Empire was only a small country at the borders of Great Qin, and the power of the Great Qin Empire far surpassed what it was now. However, in that battle, the Emperor of Qin had died in battle, and the imperial family had suffered heavy casualties. Only then did the aristocratic families of Great Qin dynasty have the chance to rise up, and the influence it had caused had lasted until today. Lin Feng only needed to look at Yan Mingyue's expression to roughly know what level this divine art was at, especially if it had fallen into the hands of an extremely powerful great demon like Golden Rock Great Sage. How terrifying would it have been? Silently, Long Yi said. We received news that Golden Rock Great Sage had unintentionally found a side palace of Yu Huang in Heaven Wasteland. Even though there was nothing left in the side palace, it was said that Golden Rock Great Sage had unearthed clues to Yudu Minghua. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.